Well, the list is long on this Friday morning. Another reminder that, frankly, nothing should surprise us in sports. Maybe the timing surprises us, but nothing should probably surprise us nowadays. That's on the list. I would say the Colts injury report is getting much, much better as we sit here on this Friday morning. I'm not sure how to react to bad Pacers preseason basketball. And then, well, I guess two more items now that I think about it out loud. The Indiana Hoosiers play the biggest game that stadium has seen in probably 3 decades. And lastly, do we dance on your grave for what happened to your Yankees last night? Or are you not like a full Yankees fan? I'm always confused.
I'm very upset. I'm a full fan. I'm very upset. I mean, I'm watching 140 games a year. I mean, you better believe I'm invested.
That's a lot.
I mean, it's on in the background if it's not being watched. No, I mean, listen, I understand.
So we want to kill Rizzo. We want Luke Weaver.
Luke Weaver, I love that man, but he spit the bit last night. I will say, You kind of were like the ghost of Mark Dykton. You looked at Corbin and you said, we may need one of those home runs from the Guardians last night. So
nothing
come
against
on.
you. And some of my good friends are Yankees fans, but I thought Brian Anderson's call was outstanding on John Kinsey Noel's.
I know.
Homer in the ninth.
We can do that. I got no problem. Now, I will say, if Georgia Tech wins, be ready for what's the Haynes King? What's the guy's name? Who's the big quarterback there?
Kind of hoping he's hurt.
Yeah, okay.
Corbin, if you can find that, John Kinsey Noel's 9th inning shot with 2 outs last night. That's playoff baseball.
Disgusting.
And I know it went against your boys, but that is exactly why we love the month.
Let the little team in Cleveland have one. It's okay. I mean, they have no football team. Their favorite son in basketball split up with them twice to go win championships in other places. So, Yankees in 5. Me and Jimmy Cook are fine. You don't worry about us. Me and Jay Cook are good.
Just announced their football team will now play games like in Fort Wayne here moving forward. Good Friday morning to you. That was Andy Sweeney. I'm Kevin Bowen. Corbin Lingenfelter on the ones and twos. Again, that laundry list of things means we've got a whole lot to talk about here. Purdue is hosting one of the best teams in college football tonight inside of their stadium.
You got big money on it. I mean, you're the money man.
Large sums of money on that. So I will leave it up to you, Andy Sweeney. Where the hell do we begin?
Well, I mean, we need to give a hat tip to our guy Hammer, who went 3-0 last night in Thursday Night Football.
He did make us some nice money.
In a game that nobody cared about unless you had, God bless you, unless you had Javonte Williams in fantasy football or you had the over-under, which, by the way, did you see the bad beat on the over-under last night?
Oh, that was great.
In the NFL?
Jake Hayner getting it done there late.
For people that don't know, the over-under was what, 36? Is that what it was, I think? 36 or 37. And the Saints, they went down and scored a final touchdown in the final 90 seconds, and they were acting like that was the drive for their Super Bowl. Like it was Hunger Games, and if they didn't score, they were going to go to the Coliseum and, have to throw a spear at somebody, like Jennifer Lawrence. That is unbelievable. So, I mean, I don't know. I think for me, the lead, obviously, with the Colts is, every game is big for a specific reason. We talk about must-wins and all that, but, with the schedule that's upcoming with the Texans and Vikings and Bills, Jets, and Lions and everything else, boy, you really need to win one here. And it's frustrating. You're not going to get DeForest Buckner. It's frustrating. Jonathan Taylor. I thought yesterday JT was pretty open with, at times pain is still there with that ankle. I mean, we are dealing with an ankle that is still painful, and he was very open that, hey, usually this is a 4 to 6 week injury, and I'm trying to come back early. And I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse about things with Jonathan Taylor, but the practice report does look better. And I think for Colts fans, the last few weeks have been difficult on how to analyze with bad teams and Joe Flacco and all the drama last weekend with Anthony Richardson. I'm excited to see AR back out there and to see if he can kind of pick up where he left off with the Steelers. I mean, to me, like it's go time. Let's go. We're getting into mid-late October. It's go time for a guy like Anthony Richardson.
7 of the 9 guys that did not practice on Wednesday were out there participating yesterday. Again, Anthony Richardson, that is now 8 straight practices for him. Jonathan Taylor, that's 8 straight missed for him. And I think Taylor probably reminded all of us of what was needed yesterday, as much as fans don't want to hear it.
Yep.
He suffered a high ankle sprain.
Yep.
Okay, that took Josh down 6 weeks. DeForest Buckner, it's now about to be 5 weeks. Jonathan Taylor is not even to week 3. I mean, this is week 3 coming up on Sunday. So I guess when Ian Rappaport, sends out mild high ankle sprain, it's like, what the hell does that even mean? I've never even heard of a mild high ankle sprain, but Taylor obviously is going to miss another game here. So plenty to get to on the Colts front. I do think it's odd. I was thinking about this as these two teams get ready to play, and Zaire Franklin described him as the best player in the NFL earlier this week in Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's only played the Colts one time in his career.
That's crazy. It really is.
So they played in 2016.
Stunning.
Which I think was Hill's rookie season. 2019, probably one of the more notable Colts wins in the Frank Reich era. They win that game on Sunday Night Football, kind of a slugfest, and Hill didn't play in that game. Yes, he did play in the playoff game later that year, but one regular season game. He's played every AFC team at least twice, outside of the Chiefs, of course. And the Colts would fall into that boat. So, it's one thing to watch the speed on film. Pursuit angles at times, I think, have been a bit off for the Colts this season. You take the wrong pursuit angle on Tyreek Hill, and, he's going to be in Pat McAfee's suite there in the end zone. So, certainly that is part of my worry level as we give our picks out coming up here today. And, again, Andy, should I be mad at the Pacers for how poor they've played this preseason with their starters? Am I allowed to?
I think you
I can't tell you one thing
bit.
that happened in last year's preseason. I don't remember anything.
No, I don't either.
Kendall Brown, did he have a nice dunk in the fourth quarter?
I got to be honest, I don't. But I tell you what, Brandon Miller's pretty good, isn't he?
Brandon Miller, very good at basketball.
Brandon Miller.
I guess Seth Curry's
Miles.
on his 9th different team. LaMelo Ball is healthy for now, and outside of that, I didn't know a single Hornets player.
Seth, well, come on, Nick Richards. We talked about this, the random Kentucky player.
It's because I watch too much sports.
I got to be honest. I don't know what the reaction is, and we'll play the sound as we go this morning. Rick Carlisle, not surprisingly, not thrilled, not happy after the game with the starters. He used the words, they're not tied together. They're not playing as a unit. Now you get the better part of what you get the weekend, and you get a couple days next week before we get that season popping. But I guess for me, I am interested.
They're not good on either end of the floor right now.
Here's the thing. Last year, I thought Rick Carlisle, he played bad cop at times, but I thought it was a lot of we're a young team. I thought he played good cop last year. I thought he did. In not all instances, I want to be clear. He came on here and was pissed off on some Tuesdays. But I thought, he tried to keep it in context of we're building a team, we have young players, and a lot of this was, of course, before Pascal Siakam. I don't think you're going to get much of that rhetoric from Rick Carlisle this year. I think you're going to start seeing a more stern Rick Carlisle, dare I say a little bit more of a bad cop Rick Carlisle. I mean, this team from last year to this year was supposed to grow up. And I think the one thing that would worry you about the preseason is on both sides of the floor, it doesn't look like that's happened. I'm not overly worried about the offense. I think that will click. But I think when you talk about playing together, you talk about rebounding, toughness, defense. I mean, we're going on a year now. Those are the things that this franchise is really stressing. And I think it probably bothers Rick that, through 4 games in the preseason, maybe he doesn't see the maturation that we thought. And I think that's fair. And if he wants to be tough on these guys, I have no problem. Everyone's been paid. Everyone's been lauded. You made the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not overreacting. But if he wants to be a little tough on him, I have no problem with that being the case.
And again, Andy, offensively, sure, them treating the defensive end of the floor, like it's an Olay at times, we're kind of used to, frankly.
Right.
But offense, they didn't get to 50 last night in the first half. You don't get to 50 and a half in today's NBA, and part of me is like, okay, explain it, Kevin. Are they not handling the extra physicality that we're, I guess, seeing emphasized in the NBA this season? Are they not handling that as well as, maybe other teams are? Again, Charlotte was over 60 in the first half against you last night. So, yeah, it is preseason, and I think largely I will remind myself of that a lot over the next 6 days.
I agree.
But if you literally were like, you have to evaluate the preseason so far, I would say the starting group's been about a D.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think Carlisle probably agrees with you.
So,
to be quite honest.
Nice moments from Enrique Freeman and Ben Shepherd late last night for those that
if he stayed up.
stayed up or stayed at the Fieldhouse for all 4 quarters and overtime of that game. So we'll hit on that as well. Again, Bloomington, it is going to be certainly appointment television on Fox coming up tomorrow morning. Looks to be a glorious day down there as the Hoosiers are a touchdown favorite. I believe it's their first home game as a ranked team since 93.
God bless him. I was 9 years old.
That is just an astonishing stat. And speaking of college athletics, and I hinted at this in the open, I think I've kind of grown accustomed to nothing truly surprises me.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say timing of things still surprises me. Tony Bennett retiring 17 days before the start of the season.
Yeah.
That is very surprising.
It's a real stand-up thing to do, right? I mean, it puts potentially 2 things up. Now the players get 30 days to transfer. So does anyone leave Virginia basketball? That's number one. And I'm blanking on the guy's name. His assistant coach there, who he wants to take over, is the reason you do it. Because the guy's going to get at least a year if you're Tony Bennett. I'm very split on this.
So you don't go with the respect card of he was going to half-ass it this season, and now he's given one of his own a chance to take over?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more planned than that. If you're asking me, Tony Bennett, who is a schematic genius in a lot of ways in college basketball, where I come down on Tony Bennett is this. There was a 10-year period in the ACC that he dominated, probably 8 out of 10 years. I mean, he was beating the big teams consistently. You know, when I was following Louisville basketball, KB, he tormented them. He tormented them over probably 4 different coaches in the ACC. He tormented them. His style of play on offense was absolutely disgusting. 351 in pace. But defensively, he was probably one of the better college basketball coaches we have ever seen. And again, dominated the ACC. And here's the thing I'm split on. And you may think I'm being mean here at 7:12 this morning. There is a sense of these guys there are coaches that are leaving the game. When you think of him and you think of Coach K, you think of some of the rhetoric around Nick Saban because they don't like NIL and they don't like the way that college basketball and college football are headed.
I think Jay Wright is probably the better comp. Saban and Coach K were pretty old.
They were old, but they both talked about it a lot. I mean, both of them were very vocal about, the way college football was and college basketball, the way things were going. And so I don't know if I am a woe is me, get over it, big boy, you're making $5 million a year, or I understand it, and you can walk away and you made millions of dollars. But I mean, it was surprising right before the season. It's a calculated move, in my estimation, why he did it. And Tony Bennett, just a fine looking man, that pepper hair. I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want to look like him when you were 55 years old?
I know. We'd watch a lot of
come on
Virginia games of them just suffocating Notre Dame. And
just unbelievable.
Maddie would then comment on Tony Bennett's looks.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy, man.
Made me want to turn off the TV immediately. Yeah, it's certainly the timing. Again, Rick Carlisle was on with us and talked about visiting him several weeks ago, and that aspect to it. Carlisle mentioned it last night pregame. He was at ACC Media Day last week.
I mean, it was last week.
I mean, they were picked to finish 5th in the ACC. It's not like they were 10th or 11th or anything like that. And I know Kyle Guy is now on staff with him at Virginia, and I remember Kyle Guy's stories, and we've had him on the show before. Like, he named his first son after Tony Bennett. I mean, guys speak crazy, glowingly,
especially those teams,
of what Tony Bennett has meant to them. So just the timing is so wild here. 55 years old. All the reports indicate nothing health-related. He will have a press conference coming up later today for that. And boy, I would love to see who was the thirstiest staff in college basketball to contact the Virginia players.
Oh, I hope so.
Who was right there? Who saw the report from Jeff Goodman and said, will you hand me Malcolm Brogdon's little brother's number here?
Yeah, what about if it's your guy?
Is there another DeAndre Hunter? Yeah, Notre Dame does have a former Tony Bennett assistant on their staff.
There you go.
How do you look at that as you're a college coach? You don't want to ruffle your team's feathers 2 weeks before the season?
I think if you have place for a player, you go look for a player. Yeah. That's what I don't know is 17 days before the season, These guys can transfer, but are there any
Doesn't
places?
IU have an open scholarship?
Well, yeah, I mean, are there any places where things haven't been finalized? And by things, I mean NIL, roster spots, minutes that are, already given to somebody on that roster. But who's the hired gun that Shrewsbury has that you always talk about? The recruiter guy? I call him the hired gun. What's
that's
his name?
blasphemy. He's a tremendous human being.
What's his name?
Hired gun sounds like such a negative term.
Well, that's the recruiter, baby. Who's the recruiter that's next to Shrewsbury?
He's got a great staff. Mike Farrell.
That's the guy.
Kyle Getter.
Yeah, there you go.
And Ryan Ghost Owens.
There you go.
He's a great human. I will not hear the hired gun reference for him.
Calipari's was Orlando Antigua. That was the guy.
Grady Eifert on that staff.
Okay.
Speaking of the Eifert family there.
All right.
So 30 days.
So we'll see.
That's what happens with this. The portal opens for these UVA players for 30 days, and they play a basketball game in less than 3 weeks.
So, yeah, we're busy this morning, obviously. We'll give our picks coming up at 8:30. We have Rakestraw, his normal 8 o'clock. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, coming up at 9 o'clock, and much more. On the other side, your morning check down, obviously, a huge night in sports. Plus, Jonathan Taylor did meet with the media yesterday. We'll give you that sound as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call to Football Friday right here on The Fan.
Busy and entertaining Thursday and Thursday night in sports. A lot to get to, Andy Sweeney, as we check it down.
Yeah, we had baseball, we had Pacers, Thursday night football, and so much more. As always, though, let's start with the Colts. Yesterday, despite, basically not playing, and again, this is just going to be 3 weeks now for Jonathan Taylor out. No expectation of him playing, not at practice yesterday, but he did meet with the media. And I thought this was an interesting question. He was asked yesterday, did you think the length of this injury would be what it is? Here's basically what JT had to say.
Well, once they said high ankles, I know high ankles are usually 4 to 6, but me attacking different rehabs and injuries, I'm like, man, there's no way. So I just got to do everything in my power to keep chopping that down each and every single day.
Did we talk to you about possibly going on IR, or was that always out of the question?
I never like to throw that around because, especially being on PUP last year, it's definitely not a place you don't want to be if you don't have to be there. So if you feel as though like, hey, I feel like with the training staff, we can potentially avoid that, and that's always a positive.
So Sunday would be the third missed game in this stint. IR would be at least 4 weeks,
right,
if you want to play that out. He mentioned specifically yesterday it's not as much of a re-injury worry. It's more of a functionality worry, like doing the cutting that comes with playing the running back position. So in all likelihood, no Taylor, no DeForest Buckner still on IR with that 21-day window yet to be started. And we'll see about Alec Pierce today. That was the new injury that popped up yesterday on the injury report. Mentioned during the show late yesterday, they did add a wideout to the practice squad. Now, he's more of a slot wideout, so I thought a little bit of Josh Downs, but sure enough, Pierce did not practice. Pittman and Downs did. So I'd say all in all, it was a pretty good Thursday injury report. Of the 9 guys that didn't go Wednesday, 7 of them went yesterday. But again, no Pierce. So we'll watch that today. Anthony Richardson was full for a second straight day. Again, the Colts lone home game here in October, and they remain about a field goal favorite for this one on Sunday. All right, last night in Major League Baseball, actually, Corbin, I'm going to go with the John Kinsey Noel highlight, if you don't mind, with that one. I thought that call from Brian Anderson was excellent. Andy Sweeney, no salt in the wounds. I apologize, but the call was too good.
Let's play it.
Not to play. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, must have. No, Noel.
Corbin doesn't have that one. Which one did he have?
I thought he said he dubbed it.
I have absolutely no idea.
Brian Anderson's call. Yeah. Play the call. Yes.
Swung on, hit high, hit deep to left. There she goes. How about that? A walk-off, 2-run home run.
So that was David Fry last night in the 10th there. We'll effort the Brian Anderson call of John Kinsey Noel. I thought that was excellent with a nice Christmas reference there. Andy Sweeney, I think the Guardians deserve that after how lucky your Yankees got in games 1 and 2.
What kills me about it is they're not even the big players. They're guys that have spent time in AAA this year.
And those were no doubters.
They're out of
there. Great
there.
bat flips.
And there's nothing you can do. The Yankees had Luke Weaver on the mound. It's exactly the situation they wanted. They had the big bats give them the lead, and they put Luke Weaver out there for what, a 5-out save? I mean, they had exactly what they wanted. So
What a game. Judge and Stanton do Judge and Stanton things in the 8th, break the Guardians' heart there, and then boom, sure enough, down to their last out, they're able to get it done. In the NLCS, those Dodger bats are alive and well on the brink of elimination here. 3-1 series lead, the Dodgers. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, all over the Mets.
Yeah, it's a bad night for Mets fans. They were probably more. Actually, I shouldn't say that. They were happy. Actually, they probably went home happy that the Yankees lost. It didn't matter that they had lost. KB, their magical season is coming to an end where they won 1 playoff series. So
both of these
a good deal for them.
Series back in action today. Again, the Guardians trying to even it up, and it will be the Mets trying to keep their season alive.
Yeah, so doubleheader tonight. Let's go to the Pacers, 121-116. That's your final last night. Let me give you a piece of Rick Carlisle sound. He has not been happy with the starters through the 4 preseason games. Here's Carlisle postgame.
We have a lot of work to do before next Wednesday. We're not where we need to be. I've got to really look at what's happening. Our starting group has just not been tied together, and we're not doing a good enough job in a lot of the important areas, with physicality, with rebounding, with togetherness. So that's on me. And so we'll keep working on that.
It is preseason basketball. It has also not been good for the Pacers starters. I think you hear that out of Rick Carlisle. And I would argue, Andy, it's both sides of the floor, which is not something we certainly said at all last year. I thought Siakam was awful last night. Not a good night for Jarris Walker when he got some minutes. Again, the Pacers played their starters, and they played their starters into the third quarter. They were down 12 at half to the Hornets, and then the Hornets said, yeah, we've seen enough of our starters. We're good. Pacers played them into the third quarter. So clearly not too happy from Rick Carlisle on that. In Detroit, Wednesday for the regular season opener. Did I hear JMV's gone must-win for that?
That's the promo that's up there. Game 1 of the NBA season, my man's going must-win.
So they play 82, right, in the NBA? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And he's gone must-win?
He's going must-win for the Pistons game on a Wednesday.
That might be the most ludicrous must-win he's ever done.
I think so, too. I think he's going to the well one too many times. It's like the Yankees pitching Luke Weaver too much last night. That's what it is. Come on.
Unbelievable. What a slate for college football locally tonight at Ross-Ade. It'll be a great night weather-wise. We'll see if the Boilers can cover. I certainly pray they can. Purdue and Oregon, 28.5 points now. That spread there. It'll be Ryan Brown getting his second start. It'll be a short week, obviously, for Oregon after that emotional W. And speaking of emotions, certainly they'll be high in Bloomington coming up tomorrow. Big noon kickoff is there. It is homecoming, and it is Indiana, 6.5-point favorite over Nebraska. Did I hear that right? Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game in 8 years.
Boy, that does sound right. I mean, I forget the name of the coach. Oh, the good-looking guy who had been there, who had played there, who was at UCF, who everybody loved. Yeah, I mean, he had, 3-4 terrible years there. So that's not surprising. That's what they got to do. They got to make a bowl.
You've had 2 good-looking coach references in the first half hour.
I forget his name, too. I can't remember his name. I can't remember where he's even at now. Everyone crushed this guy. Matt Rule's a pretty good coach. He'll get him back. He'll get him back to an 8. Can they be more than 8-4? That, to me, is the question for a team like Nebraska.
Pretty good college football week. Texas, Georgia. Scotty Scheffler doing the game day picking there.
Oh, is he?
Tennessee,
Okay.
Bama on top of that. I think some sneaky games. Louisville, Miami tomorrow at noon.
It's a big game.
Down in Louisville. And then you've got Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. That is in the Falcons Stadium. And week 9 of high school football. It's not been a given all week long, but all year long, I should say. Great weather for tonight.
Scott Frost. Thank you, Scotty. That's what I was thinking. Man, Scott Frost, I thought he was going to be good.
Nebraska legend.
Yeah, he was just absolutely terrible. 33-10, your final last night, Broncos over the Saints. All right, we need to take a break. Coming up on the other end, couple thoughts on Anthony Richardson as he gets set to start on Sunday against Miami. And what do we think's going to happen? We'll give you our predictions coming up at 8:30. Greg Rakestraw at 8. Appreciate you waking up with us. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It is indeed Friday, and we got a ton to get to here on this Football Friday. Not just the professional slate, certainly college-wise on top of that. But as we focus here on Colts and Dolphins in Week 7, I don't know if we're going revenge game for Raekwon Davis. Maybe.
Yeah. Why hasn't that been the lead in the media with the media all week? How dare you guys out there?
Shame
Colts
we've
facility.
waited until hour 13 of the week here on the show to get to that. Anthony Walker, former Colts linebacker, a member of the Dolphins defense, if you're curious about that. Again, Dallas Clark coming up in the Ring of Honor on Sunday. Andy, all signs point to Anthony Richardson indeed playing and getting back into the starting lineup. What do you want to see the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's a great question. You want to do the rest of the year, or do you want to do just on Sunday?
Well, the rest of the year is probably a bit.
I was about to say, come on.
Dreaming, but I guess either works. I mean, obviously, rest of the year, the easy answer would be playing and suiting up.
Yeah, finishing games.
So let's focus non-injury, non-availability. Let's focus on ability. What do you want to see on the field from him?
Yeah, I think for me, the few things that I want to see on the field, besides, move health aside, like you mentioned, is just not the losing plays. Joe Flacco, he had the one interception, but the strength of Joe Flacco when he was playing was he wasn't turning the ball over. Now, he had a couple plays that could have been turnovers. I know, eventually he had the fumble. I understand he had an interception, but it wasn't like consistently you're driving down the field, you get to the 18-yard line, and you're turning the ball over. So for me, I'm going to be watching turnovers with Anthony Richardson that really plagued him early parts of the season. And then, this might be kind of an odd thing to bring up, but, the last 3 games, Josh Downs has been a big-time strength to the passing game. Does that continue with Anthony Richardson? And we did the numbers last week. Tight end usage as well under Joe Flacco had been something that we were charting, and the tight ends were much more involved. Does that continue? And, you bring up the Alec Pierce injury. One of the strengths of AR is getting the ball down the field to Pierce. Is that going to be taken away on Sunday? If so, then a guy like Downs and utilizing the tight ends will be a part of it. Then I think the biggest question mark is how much he runs on Sunday. How much he runs that are scrambles, how much he runs that are designed runs, how much Shane Steichen pushes the issue with him running the football is a big question mark. But for me, it's going to be turnovers. I know you can say accuracy and everything else. To me, it's turnovers, and then we have seen guys like Josh Downs be big parts of this offense without Anthony Richardson the last couple weeks. What does that look like against the Dolphins? The Dolphins against the pass are good, but that's about it. Offensively, they're not scoring. And then on the defensive side, they will let you. They're about mid-par. They're about 18, 19 in the NFL. They'll let you run. How are the Colts able? This is more of an 8:30 topic, but are the Colts able to run the football with AR, with Tyler Goodson, whoever is out there on Sunday? That's going to be a big key as well.
Yeah, I'd say if I could just single out one thing, Richardson, it is eliminate the turnovers, because that is the biggest difference from last season. The completion percentage, yes, is not at the level of last year either, but it's a survivable completion percentage. It's not by any means ideal or thriving, but it's survivable. The amount of interceptions, again, the highest interception rate in the NFL, that's not. And, he's also had a couple fumbles that have sat there on the turf, and luckily the Colts have pounced on it. So, again, those are if I could just boil it down to one thing I want to see change from him ability-wise moving forward, it's that. Now, I brought this up earlier in the week, and you just hit on it there, Andy. I think he should revive the run game a little bit. And I know Jonathan Taylor would obviously help out. But, again, go back to last year. Zach Moss with Anthony Richardson, Zach Moss with Gardner Minshew. Two very, very different efficiency, production outputs, if you will, from Moss. So can you do that? You brought up Downs and the tight ends. How much of that was because they couldn't run it?
It's a great question.
Did Flacco look at that, or did the Colts look at it and say, guys, we can't run it at all. This is going to kind of be our, pseudo run game here. You would think that Richardson will have had I would argue Josh Downs is probably the person he's thrown the ball to the most in his NFL career when you factor in rookie minicamp, when you factor in practice, all of that. They're extremely close. So, that will be, of course, something to keep an eye on. And just in general, I think anytime you see Richardson back in the lineup after injury.
Well, that's my question.
I'm interested how much Shane Steichen specifically runs him. And just how much, because that Pittsburgh game, they ran him a good amount pre-injury. He'd already run it, I think, 3 times. So, that was one quarter, 3 times. You're looking at probably a season high in rush attempts if he plays that game out. So, on the Richardson front, that probably covers it all. For those that missed it, because you just brought it up there, and I want to make sure we acknowledge it, Alec Pierce did not practice yesterday due to a shoulder injury. He was a new name on the injury report. So the injury report outside of Taylor was a really good-looking injury report yesterday. 9 guys didn't go Wednesday. 7 of them got back to work yesterday, but Pierce was the new one. And, again, for what it's worth, they have 3 wide receivers on the practice squad, so we'll see about that today.
Let me ask you this. Is there any, and I know it's tough to forecast this on a Friday before a Sunday game, are we cutting him any slack for missing the last couple weeks coming off an injury? Or is this Anthony Richardson, hey, go out there, you're 100%, they kept you out an additional week to make you, to make sure that you're 100%? Like, I guess, early in the week, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, my takeaway was it felt like AR was going to, early in the week we had the conversation of it sure feels like they kept him out against the Titans to play this week. That it was almost chapter 2 of the Anthony Richardson saga here in Indianapolis. And for me, like all of the I don't know, just all of the Anthony Richardson stuff to me is out the window. I want to see the guy play. I want to see him be healthy. And I just kind of want all of the excuses and coddling and just all the stuff to go out there. And I just want to analyze him like a normal starting quarterback in the NFL. And I know he hasn't played a lot of football, but at some point, at some point we got to get going here. That's how I'm viewing Sunday. Like, I'm excited. I was excited last week. I'm excited this week to see Anthony after the conversations the last couple weeks have been questioning him, questioning his play, questioning his health, those sorts of things. I'm interested and excited on how he's going to react on Sunday. To me, any of the, he's coming off an injury and he's been out the last couple weeks, like, I'm just over that. I want to see him go out there, play football, open the playbook, and do what you can do.
Better chance IU football makes the playoffs or the Colts make the playoffs?
The Colts. I hate doing that to Cignetti. The powers that be in college football are going to do everything they can to keep Cignetti out. And I do think Indiana will lose a game, if not 2.
You don't think IU would draw a lot of TV eyes? Don't they have the second largest alumni base in the U.S.?
Okay. No, I don't. I think the SEC and other Big Ten schools will stab them in the back. That's what I think.
IU or Kansas State. I don't think Kansas State's going to have an overwhelming.
But Kansas State would have to make the playoff.
Oh,
they would get the auto bid to make the playoff.
11-1 Kansas State or 10-2 IU.
Well, 11-1 Kansas State would make the playoff 100 times out of 100 over Indiana. I'd say the Colts. We did the exercise earlier in the week, did we not?
Well, I mean, if you want to get, overanalyze every individual game, last night was not the result you wanted.
Well, Spencer Rattler.
You want Denver to lose.
Yeah,
is what you want. Again, my worry level is still a little bit higher than it was last week for the opponent. I just think, I brought it up earlier. I mean, the Colts have nobody on this Colts defense has really ever seen Tyreek Hill.
Well, they have legit players. Tennessee's offense has one legit player. Tony
Tackling
Pollard.
Calvin Ridley after an incompletion is different than tackling Tyreek Hill. So, that aspect worries me. I get a little Green Bay vibes.
Okay. So is this more of a Gus Bradley game then than an Anthony Richardson game?
Well, I mean, big picture, it's obviously Richardson. But if you want to live in the Week 7 bubble here, certainly the Colts defense is going to play a huge part in this result. Again, Miami's coming off a bye. I think Mike McDaniel's really respected as an offensive mind. I know their offense has been just dog poop this season.
Right.
So did they get any sort of bye weeks? Tyler Huntley's practice an extra week, could study our playbook more. He's used to whatever. His footwork has now improved on certain drops that allow us to get the ball into Hill and Waddle's hands. weirdly, Odell Beckham made his return last week. And
I forgot about him.
Actually had a couple of catches.
Oh,
So,
did he? My guy.
It's another week of Odell Beckham. I know
Okay.
that might shock some people that his name.
Yeah, I forgot he was in the NFL.
Devin A-Chain has progressed through concussion protocol. He's a very explosive running back. So that is kind of where I'm a little worried. It's like, if you can't get home with your pass rush again, and now you let them attempt a ball to Hill, attempt a ball to Waddle, that maybe they wouldn't if your pass rush was humming, the back end of the defense and getting tested like that is where my concern level is.
Let me ask you this. What's the better? You asked me, and it was a good question. Who has a better chance of making the playoffs between the Colts and the Hoosiers? I think
what a question. I mean, can you believe that that was a legitimate question?
It's a good question. It really is.
I'm going to ask Rakestraw that coming up in
I like
15.
that. Anthony Richardson or Gus Bradley? Who do you think we're leading with on Monday?
Well, it's always a quarterback. I mean,
But if this defense stinks it up against it again, the Miami Dolphins have scored 2 touchdowns in 39 possessions after Tua went down. 2 touchdowns.
Gosh, that is such a pathetic stat. Say that again.
2 touchdowns in 39 possessions for the Miami Dolphins since Tua got injured. It's an unbelievable stat, is it not? I couldn't believe it when I saw it this morning.
Yards after catch is so much of what Miami is about. So, okay, what goes into yards after catch? I think part of it is you allow, routes to develop. You allow, guys to be able to make some plays post-catch. So, again, that's a pass rush element. That's been an issue. Tackling would probably be at the top of the list as something that's been an issue there. So, and coverage bust. When you think of yards after catch, Brian Thomas Jr. getting behind the Colts defense a couple weeks ago, that's yards after catch. Sure, it went 30, 40 yards in the air, but then he ran another 40 because of that coverage bust. So we'll give our picks upcoming here. Again, it is a Fox broadcast. You'll get a little Daryl Johnson. Is he on with John
Moose.
today? Corbin, did you say that?
Moose.
Daryl Johnson
I like
on
that.
with John.
Do you want to know who the 2 touchdowns are? So the touchdowns aren't even passing touchdowns by the Dolphins. They're running touchdowns. And again, since Tua has been out, they've scored 2 touchdowns in 39 possessions. The 2 touchdowns is a Tyler Huntley rushing touchdown, and the other one was against the New England Patriots, okay? It was an Alex Ingold rushing touchdown.
Oh, yeah, he's like their Kyle Juszczyk, right?
Yeah, it's also not good if you're anyone who has a fantasy football team. No one's got Alex Ingold. So those are the 2 of the last, 3 games. Those are the 2 touchdowns that the Miami Dolphins have scored. Has been a quarterback scramble touchdown and essentially a 5th running back or a fullback 3-yard rush up the middle. That's it. That's all they've allowed.
I think we've efforted this highlight from last night.
Oh,
I thought
come on.
it was an outstanding call from Brian Anderson. Corbin, this is the John Kinsey Noel home run. Go ahead and play it.
Oh my goodness! Big Christmas has tied it!
That's a great name.
The ultimate present under the tree! Oh my goodness! John Kinsey Noel! The biggest swing of his life!
Big Christmas is such a good name.
How great was that?
That's what you should be, Corbin. You'd be Big Christmas. I like that.
The bat flip was so good. And David Fry had a similar one there in the 10th.
What a great moment for them. A Christmas present under a tree to lose in 5. What a great moment.
Oh, stop it. Hey, bitter
Come
Yankees
on.
fan
I'm
on this
gonna be
Friday
bitter
morning.
for a second.
Celebrate the
Come on.
highlight.
Wake up, Jimmy Cook. Help me out.
Your Yankees have been fortunate to be
you
up
think-
2-1.
Yeah, well, it's been an ugly series.
How about
It's been an ugly one.
I thought when Judge hits the homer in the 8th, which cleared by
Ugh.
6 inches, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is just. And then Stanton hits I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, is there when you do your misery fan index for next week, just put
Yeah.
Cleveland in there.
Just put they just stay there, don't they? They just always
It's
have
just
a
a given
permanent
that they're
spot.
there?
It's just a given that they're sitting there. No, listen, it was a good one. It's fine. We have a doubleheader tonight. It is fun watching the Mets fans realize
I got
that the
all
ride
these
is
Yankees
over.
fans reaching out. I feel like the Jimmy Cooks of the world,
Oh,
all of
boy.
a sudden, the
Let 'em have it.
Patrick Lees of the world, the Robert Lamies of the world are all of a sudden attacking me.
Well, listen.
What a moment for the Guardians last night.
Sometimes you're what do you say? You're in a hornet's nest right now. You got to watch out. We come out of the woodwork. We'll attack you. It's a lot like Notre Dame football fans.
No,
it's a little.
That's probably a fair statement. Again, big noon kickoff going to be in Bloomington tomorrow, Indiana and Nebraska. I've said this to you throughout the week. I don't know if I've overwhelmingly impressed by Nebraska, though. I mean, all this hype with the 5-star quarterback, and he has had.
They've been okay.
It looks like Mahomes' offspring. He has looked, I think pretty good, but still, I don't think the results lead. They're a touchdown underdog, I think, for a reason.
Their biggest win is over Colorado in week 2. That's their win.
And that was at home, right?
And that was at home. It was week 2, and they were definitely sitting there waiting for Dion. They had a lot into that game, but
yeah, him and Matt Rule have kind of chirped at each other a little bit.
Since then they lost to Illinois. I thought Purdue played Illinois better than Nebraska did. They beat Purdue 28-10. That's a so-so game. I don't know how much to read into that. And then they beat Rutgers just 14-7. I tend to think if you ask me my gut prediction for this game, I would probably say Indiana wins by a field goal.
Oh, so you think it's going to be close?
I think it's going to be close, and I would say Nebraska gives Indiana and Cignetti all they want, and I would say that I would probably take the 6.5 or 7, but I do think Indiana is going to win. Now, Indiana's doing something. Also, have you seen that they're doing a happy hour before the game? So the 52,000, whatever it is, that's there, the sellout in attendance.
And that's different than any other pre-IU football game atmosphere?
They're having a Memorial Stadium happy hour from 10:30 to 11:30 where there's discounted hot dogs, popcorn, fountain soda, and discounted beer.
So you're talking in the stadium.
I'm talking, they're trying to get butts in the seats by, 11:30, 12 o'clock, so it's a great atmosphere.
Well,
good luck.
I know it's the biggest home game in decades, but I'm going to guess the Bloody Marys at the tailgate will be what they opt for. A little rum chata in the coffee.
Oh, yeah. If you're a college kid, which you were at one point, KB,
I was,
there in Bloomington.
Correct.
What time are you awake on Saturday morning? Now, I know Friday night's probably going to be a late night. It's homecoming. You got to take a little bit of a nap before Saturday.
It all depends on your discipline. Okay. I think you will have an element of students that will show great discipline tonight, and they will have that alarm clock ready to go.
Okay.
For that student body and that fan base, I've thought about this many times. I'm like, I never woke up one Saturday morning thinking to myself in Bloomington, I cannot wait to be inside a Memorial Stadium.
I got to get some Coors Light in me by 8 a.m. so I can get to the stadium.
I hope I have my student ID on me to get into the student set. That never crossed my mind.
Right.
3 Big Ten wins in 4 years.
I know.
They've already won 3 Big Ten games under Kurt Cignetti.
I know. He's so cocky. By the way, if they beat Nebraska next week versus Washington stinks, will be the letdown game.
That's Washington at 9 a.m.
We'll be doing that. We'll be doing the letdown stuff. And then, really, I mean this in all seriousness. You beat Nebraska, you take care of business. You're setting up a November to remember, as the commercials would say. You would earn the right to have just awesome crowds for that Michigan and Purdue game at the end of the season.
Hell, could College Game Day be making stop? Who would be the game day picker for IU?
Joe Buck. Could they fly in Joe Buck? Joe Buck's been vocal here the last couple months about how much.
What about Cuban?
Well, I was thinking
Schwarber.
Cuban would be the other one. Schwarber's got a lot of time. I think Cuban's actually not a bad one.
Schwarber would be pretty. Obviously Cuban would be pretty animated as well. Schwarber would be very. Schwarber strikes me as one that he's definitely having a bloody or two before the old happy hour.
McAfee would have to slow Cuban down from talking politics. Listen, we're just talking pigskin here, okay? We're not talking politics. Yeah. That's all Mark Cuban does now. Talk politics. So I don't know. I would still say Joe Buck, the ESPN thing, right?
Yeah,
don't you think?
That's probably
it. Big weekend of high school football, and obviously Purdue tonight, Indiana on Saturday, and how do the Colts get the victory on Sunday? We'll talk about it all. Greg Rakestraw, he joins us next, 8 o'clock hour around the corner. It's a wake-up call right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Greg Rakestraw. I think it fits.
I do too. I think this needs to be the entrance music every week. Good job, Corbin.
Rake, by any chance, was that the walk-up music for you down there? And gosh, I'm gonna butcher your hometown. I apologize.
In Lanesville, no, because walk-up music wasn't a thing when I played 30 years ago. But that movie was very much a thing. When I was in junior high, like your most formative years as a baseball fan, I was spoiled with Major League, Field of Dreams, 8 Men Out amongst the different baseball movies. And, of course, Bull Durham. So between Bull Durham and Major League, that accounts for a lot of the language that I use off air today.
Well, I think I heard some of that language when you popped your head in studio yesterday. The great Greg Rakestraw is with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Should be a beautiful night for high school football. Rake, let's go back to the draw on Sunday. Anything in particular stand out to you about the draw?
No, not really. And again, it's a little bit different just because of having the, especially in the 5A and 6A level in terms of having, 4 teams in a sectional, you've got a better chance of having, the best teams play each other. What stood out last year was Ben Davis and Brownsburg in one half of the bracket, Avon and Pike in the other half of the bracket. You didn't seemingly have as many of those this time around. So at the large school level, we kind of avoided, that first-round carnage in terms of the top-ranked teams. And then there are certain sectionals where you're simply going to have so many good teams that, some ranked teams are going to play each other. And I knew going in from a television schedule standpoint that we were going to have a game in sectional 22 because there are basically 5 really good teams in it. So the game we got was Danville and Brebeuf, and I'm thrilled that we have that game. It may take 4 hours to play it next Friday night at Brebeuf High School, but I'm very happy we've got that game. But you just, some sections, hey, you're gonna place a great team out of the chute. So just kind of the way that it works. But in terms of first-round games where you're like, oh, my goodness, one of the best teams in the state is going home because one of the other best teams in the state in the opening round of the tournament, we don't exactly have that this year.
And we still delay 6A by a week, so we've got the regular season finale tonight, and then 6A doesn't get started for 2 more weeks. Is that right?
And the same with the 5A classification.
5A as well.
So the top 2 classes both have the opening week bye, and then there are 62 teams in the other 4 classifications, so there are all of 2 teams per class that draw a bye, 1A through 4A. Everybody else tees it up next Friday night.
Greg, it's funny you mentioned a 4-hour game. That's not all terrible for you. It's good for commercial inventory, is it not? Thrown to a lot of commercial,
people
breaks.
may not recognize the fact that in addition to being the lead announcer, I'm also the lead sales guy.
Yeah, I figured.
So, yeah. So 58-30 2 weeks ago for Ben Davis and Carmel. Good, we got 31 reads to get in this game. It kind of worked out just fine for us.
Yeah, there you go. Greg Rakestraw with us, Payless Liquors Hotline. Last thing for me on the high school stuff, and obviously college and the Colts coming up on Sunday. What matters in this final week for the big schools? I mean, we have 4 or 5 really big games, and we can talk about those, but what matters for you here in this final week of the season?
Again, I think for a lot of teams, it's just stay healthy, stay playing well, et cetera. So you guys have a very big game on your airwaves tonight. In previous years, it's been for the conference championship. That's not necessarily the case tonight, but Brownsburg HSE is a quality matchup. And Brownsburg nearly got upset last week. Noblesville led them 15-0 at halftime. Bulldogs come from behind to win 22-18. The depth in that league now is so good. There really are no easy weeks in terms of that league, so that should be a good one. Probably the headlining matchup would be Cathedral and Warren Central. The balloon came off the rose slightly for Warren because of LN thumping them 33-7 at their place 2 weeks ago, but Warren bounced back by similarly thumping Carmel in week number 8. Cathedral was involved in a shootout a couple of weeks ago in terms of beating Center Grove 49-45. Pretty much had their way with Ron Colley, as those 2 teams are not getting back together on a regular basis in their win last week. And so from a good versus good or a ranking standpoint, it's probably the best 6A matchup is Cathedral at Warren Central tonight. The game that we have is Carmel and Lawrence Central, both teams coming in at 3-5. But again, I think, again, at the 5A and 6A level, having that week off changes the dynamic so significantly in terms of any sort of momentum carrying over from the regular season. It gives you a chance to kind of catch up from a health standpoint, and basically you are truly starting your season over because you have that additional week off.
He is Greg Rakestraw at ISC Sports Network, and we have Rake on every Friday at 8 a.m. Enjoy the conversations as the high school season wraps up tonight from a regular season standpoint. Rake, shifting gears a bit here to this weekend, college football and pro football matter a whole lot on this end. I asked Andy this earlier. Better chance IU football makes the playoffs or the Colts make the playoffs?
Like I wasn't listening to the show. I mean, I heard the conversation, so I think I said with a similar pause and a similar voice inflection, Colts. And then immediately I thought of your point of like, I can't believe we're actually having this conversation. This is a legitimate conversation that we get to have in the middle of October. So I would lean towards Colts. Now, I don't think there's going to be an SEC conspiracy in terms of keeping the Hoosiers out of the college football playoff, as apparently Mr. Sweeney does for some unknown reason. But I would lean towards Colts.
You think Indiana wins this weekend? You think they beat Nebraska?
I think it's certainly possible. Now, I've got a few questions about Indiana's defense. You know, they have made enough stops for their very good offense, you know, to get wins these last couple of weeks. But there have been times that, you know, both Maryland and Northwestern have moved the ball up and down the field with some regularity, and that concerns me, again, against a slightly better level of competition against Nebraska. But, again, I think being at home and just given the way that offense has seemingly clicked at every opportunity, and the fact that when Indiana has been challenged, since they've never trailed so far this year, or when they've been challenged, they've answered the bell every time. So I think Indiana will win a close one on Saturday afternoon.
Purdue in action tonight, hosting Oregon. Of course, Oregon coming off that big win over Ohio State last week. They're traveling 3 time zones. KB has made this a mini mortgage bet.
Yeah,
Is that
mortgage bet.
a mini mortgage bet. He got
enough to pay for Rake's gas to and fro from South Bend coming up here in a few months.
He got it at 27.5. It's up to 28 now in most places. Is KB going to be able to pay his mini mortgage, do you think, coming up this month? Can Purdue keep this close tonight, do you think?
At least he has the common sense to talk about covering and not actually winning the game. Even though historically, you know, there's a reason they're called the spoiler makers.
Right.
In kind of situations like this one. But I think the talent disparity is simply too great. Yes, trap game, travel game, you know, one less day of rest, frankly, for both teams. And even though, you know, you could say Purdue would have a bit of an emotional letdown because of being so close to beating Illinois, obviously, you know, wasn't a moral victory. I don't think we're to that point in the Purdue program yet, but at least you feel like for the first time in a few weeks, geez, we can compete with some of the best teams that are on our schedule. So I think all of that lends it to being closer than 28 points, but Oregon is still a significantly better football team, and we'll get the W tonight.
Rake, my worry level for the Colts on Sunday is at a higher level than it was last week. Are you worried at all about the Dolphins and Stu Huntley coming into town?
I'm not worried about the quarterback, but I'm worried about them being able to establish the running game. And let's face it, you know, you cited the Packers in the last segment of the show. That's the precedent that was set where you go, backup quarterback, Colts got this, no problem. Well, backup quarterback had a great game plan. That team was able to establish the run, even though the Colts knew exactly what they were going to do and were deemed powerless to stop it. And so if the Colts learn from their mistakes in week number 2, then I wouldn't say I'm worried. But, yes, this is a Miami team. If they have their proper quarterback, they can be amongst the best teams in the National Football League. They spent the money. They've got the talent. They just don't have the right quarterback to distribute that ball to those weapons right now. So if the Colts, again, learn from week 2 and sell out to stop the run in the short passing game, then I think they have an opportunity to win this game. But this is also a Colts football team where nothing is guaranteed. There are no games on the schedule, even towards the back half of the schedule, where the Colts have not shown us enough this year, even in 3 wins to go, that's a guaranteed W for the Colts. That's not the way this team works. If they play well, they're capable of hanging with anybody, but they're on a prove-it basis first.
I'll ask you this to wrap things up with the Colts, and I asked KB this last segment. You think we're leading Monday's conversation, or you're leading the postgame on Sunday talking about Gus Bradley and that defense, or Anthony Richardson?
I think you always start with Anthony Richardson. I would say this, Andy, if we're leading the conversation with Gus Bradley, that's no bueno. That's not good.
I know.
Again, given the very average nature of this Miami Dolphins offense as it is currently constructed. So hopefully it's an Anthony Richardson conversation, and obviously, hopefully it's a positive one because, I've paid my therapist enough money already this year.
Rick will end the conversation going back to the high school ranks because I think it's a great, great story, and it probably has deserved a little bit more attention from us, especially in our combos with you. Could you put maybe into context the job that Pat Mallory has done at LN this season?
It is the culmination of a very, of a building process. And again, I think Pat deserves a lot of credit. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But the thing, and my partner Lance Scheib talks about this all the time, the administration at LN gave him the time to know they were building that football program from the ground up. That historically the football program had always lagged behind the basketball program. There was a 3-year stretch in the late 80s, 88, 89, 90, that this team won sectionals. The 89 team is the one that all of these wins that LN is racking up are comparing to, because that team went 11-0 and got beat by Carmel in the regional round of the tournament. But this is the first time that LN has done these things since that time. It's the first time they beat Center Grove last week in 19 years. And they have got a blend of really good senior talent, but another wave coming. And you could argue their two best offensive players are sophomores in Monsh and Sales, as well as Zay Moore. And Mr. Sales, who they all call Bama, because I think that's his level of talent, he's been offered by Miami of Florida. He's going to be at the IU game coming up tomorrow afternoon. Senior receiver Davion Chandler has already committed to play at Indiana University. And in case you forgot that, he wears IU gloves in every game that he plays, just to kind of showcase that. So Pat Mallory's done a great job, but the entire administration, athletic department, et cetera, have done a wonderful job in terms of investing in facilities, but given Pat the time to build the program properly.
Seems like a wide open year in 6A. LN certainly a contender here as we wrap up the regular season coming up tonight. Rake, enjoy Carmel and LC, and as always, thank you, sir. I will see you Sunday in the press box.
Sounds good. And may I add a potential candidate to the College Game Day is going to Bloomington guest picker category.
Yeah. So we went, Joe Buck, Mark Cuban, Kyle Schwarber. That was kind of our list. Who you got?
Now listen, Joe Buck, I think, is the way that it would go. But you are kind of forgetting that famous singer that calls Bloomington home. You might want to go Mellencamp on the celebrity picker.
Yeah. That is a good call.
Is he the demo for College Game Day?
I know.
I'm with you.
That was my first thought.
The demo for College Game Day is all ages, Andy. It appeals to a wide swath of people. Now, again, I would say Joe Buck as well, but just throwing it out there for conversation.
Very smart, as always. Rake, thank you.
See you guys.
Does Fox do any of that? Or does Big Noon Kickoff just roll with 19 people up there, right?
I really don't know. I was about to say they already have 19 people up there.
What is it? Urban, Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Brady Quinn, Matt Leinart.
Then the guy who kind of hosts the conversation. I think bringing back Archie Miller might not be a bad idea in there in Bloomington. What about Tom Crean? Come on, let's go.
Send him over to the tailgate fields.
Yeah. Archie Miller. I had a buddy who went to college. One of my producers back in Louisville went to college the Archie Miller years. You saw what, 3 football wins in the Big Ten? Correct, he saw 0 NCAA tournament appearances. No one a bigger college basketball fan than him either. He went the Archie years.
Thank you to Greg Rakestraw for that. We'll give our picks coming up, and as we do now on these Fridays, our easiest game to pick, our hardest game to pick, and our must-watch game. Again, this line, Colts and Dolphins, has hovered right around 3 or 4 all week long. Colts favored by 3. I would say an improving Colts injury report, albeit no Jonathan Taylor. In Miami, much healthier offensively, sans Tua, than they are defensively.
I actually think I disagree with you and Rake. I think there is, and I hope I'm wrong, I think there is a chance we're talking and we lead with Gus Bradley's defense. And I think the majority of that would be negative, that they didn't do enough. Again, the Dolphins have scored 2 offensive touchdowns since Tua, got injured. What was it, week 2, week 3? Whatever. I think it was week 2, wasn't it? The end of week 2. They've scored 2 offensive touchdowns in those 3 games. That's 39 possessions, okay? I don't trust Gus Bradley's defense at all in any way. It's why no game is a given. I would agree with Rakestraw on that, but I think there's a better chance that we'll lead with Gus Bradley. If they lose, we'll lead with Gus Bradley's defense. And if they win, I kind of feel like there's a chance that they get to the quarterback and they close the door. And having that being one of the main conversations. Now, I hope they win and Anthony Richardson throws for 285 yards and a couple touchdowns and he's running the football. And it's what we saw last year in Houston. It's what we saw at the beginning of that Steelers game. But, the most volatile part of this team is if the defense is going to tackle and if Gus Bradley is going to have a defensive plan and a defensive scheme that's good enough to stop anybody.
Getting to the quarterback, it has not happened in 9.5 quarters. That is the last sack for the Colts. Sunday is week 7.
That's unbelievable.
Their last sack was week 4.
What should be the over-under on sacks?
The midway point of the third quarter.
What do you think?
When or how many?
No, like how many? Like you would imagine they should get some anyway because of what they spent on that defensive line.
Miami's O-line is a vaunted group by any means. I would like to think you'd set against a backup quarterback. I'd like to think the over-under would be like 2.5.
Yeah, I was going to say 2.5, 3.5.
But as soon as I say that out loud, I'm like, have you not watched the last couple of weeks? Again,
No.
Just to put it into perspective, the drought they're in, it's only a 2-game drought, which, I don't know, to some might not sound like a lot. 2 games without a sack. They haven't had that as a franchise in 6 years. It's only the 3rd time, Andy, in the last 16 years, the Indianapolis Colts have gone back-to-back games without a sack. Again, Will Levis should just trip over the painted lines on the field, and that should count as a sack. And that didn't even happen for you last week. Latu touches him on the head, and then boom, it's a sack.
Right, pats him on the helmet and you get a sack out of it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Didn't even happen there. So,
don't you get a sack, too, if the guy runs out of bounds
yes.
behind the line of scrimmage? They're not even getting that.
Right. They didn't get that either. So we'll give our picks upcoming here. Again, Alec Pierce, probably the one to watch here on this Friday. He did not go yesterday due to a shoulder injury. I do sometimes worry about that with him. Those diving catches or attempts to kind of catch balls down the field. So they added a wideout to their practice squad yesterday before practice. The Pierce injury would have occurred Wednesday in practice. So just to add a little context around it. Potentially something to keep an eye on today.
Well, I think it is. This is the biggest problem we have, and I don't care if my prediction is right or wrong. I like to be right, but I understand if I could predict things, right at a very high clip, I'd be doing this show in Belize or something like that. Okay, I'd be living on a beach somewhere. How worried should we be about Alec Pierce? Because if he practices today or at least is limited in some sort of way, I feel much better about him playing on Friday. But we have been a few Fridays in a row now where we have had a Friday surprise or two, have we not? Couple weeks?
I would say last week was in the positive direction, right? The fact that Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. ended up going. Of course, the Saturday or Sunday surprise was in the opposite direction with Anthony Richardson not going. Yeah, I think Pierce is a unique player. I mean, how many catches does he have in the last 3 or 4 games? Probably 2, 3.
I think he has like 14 on the season, something like that.
But again, I don't want that to all of a sudden define not having him in the lineup because, Jalen Ramsey or Kyle Fuller, they're going to have to – gosh, I can't believe Jalen Ramsey's on the Dolphins. They're going to have to run with Pierce, and he does account for certainly some level of attention on that end. So, yeah, I do think it is worth monitoring, certainly. And, Pierce has obviously caught several deep balls from Anthony Richardson this season. So final practice for the Colts upcoming here. It was a busy, busy Thursday in the sports world. Let's recap it all on the Morning Checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Yeah, it is. Colts and Dolphins coming up on Sunday. Reminder, our coverage beginning at 9 a.m. All the pregame, the game, and the postgame right here Sunday on The Fan. Let's start with Jonathan Taylor. He met with the media yesterday, not practicing. What'd you say, KB? 8 straight practices he has missed. It looks like he's due to miss his 3rd game in a row this season. Here's Taylor yesterday meeting with the media. He understands. He's frustrated he's not out there playing.
Just keeping that end goal in mind, that's what's been fueling me, the fans, my teammates, coaches. That's just what's been fueling me to try and continue to chop this down to get back on the field, because it really sucks. It really sucks when, you can't be out there having fun with your guys. But, I've definitely had fun watching them win this past week, but it would have definitely been more fun being out there with them.
Yeah, again, you're looking at game 3 in a row now. Jonathan Taylor not playing with that mild, as it was called, high ankle sprain. Now, here's Shane Steichen. This is going back to Thursday. We've talked a lot about the skill positions, the wide receivers that the Dolphins have. Here's Steichen on that skill group yesterday or 2 days ago.
They're 2 of the best in the league, without a doubt. Big-time speed, and I mean big-time speed. So we got to do a great job this week of staying on top of those guys, because they're a big play waiting to happen. But they got a lot of skill guys. The running back's a good player. He's explosive. They do a lot of good things in the run game. I think Mike does a hell of a job scheming that stuff up. So we got to play like we talked about last week. It's fundamentals. It's details. We got to be physical. We got to tackle for sure.
Boy, that is a huge, huge importance. Again, the Colts have only seen Tyreek Hill once in a regular season game in his history, a bit of an oddity on that end. That is all the way back in 2016. So for a lot of these defenders, it'll be the first time they have seen Tyreek Hill outside of that playoff game in his career. All right, let's go to Major League Baseball from last night on that end. It was quite the drama in Cleveland. First off, you had Cleveland seemingly with one of the best closers in the game, blowing it in the 8th inning, thanks to Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton doing what they do best. But then in the 9th, John Kinsey Noel hits a 2-run shot down to their last out. That puts it into extras. And with 2 outs again in the 10th. How about that? Both homers with 2 outs there. David Fry does it. Andy Sweeney is a bitter Yankees fan, has said, yep, that'll be the thing they cling to as we win the series in 5.
I hope so. I am bitter. I wanted it to be 3-0 and for it to be over.
Make the argument the Guardians have played better than the Yankees through 3 games.
You could. If they could catch a couple fly balls,
well, yeah.
It might be a little bit different. It might be 2-1 the other way. It really might
so
be.
It'll be a game
I got no problem with that.
Today in that series, and it'll be a potential clinching game 5 for the Dodgers coming up later today. They were all over the Mets last night. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, bats galore. This has been a rout quite frequently in this series so far. Dodgers up 3-1.
Let's go to NBA last night. Pacers 121-116. Who doesn't want overtime basketball in the 4th preseason game?
Did you see the foul call
goodness.
on Ben Shepherd for the 4-point play?
I did. Ben Shepherd, by the way, is like, oh, you don't want to play me? Here, how about this? I'll be plus 17 in 28 minutes, and I'll score 14 points.
To Ben
how about
Shepherd
that?
Post-game for being like, yeah, he didn't even touch me.
No, he didn't. He was smiling when they called
Him and Enrique Freeman were great, and the
Freeman
starting
wasn't
lineup
bad.
was
I know.
bad.
Yeah, it really was. That seems to be pretty consistent. Also, last night, you had Week 7 of the NFL underway, a blowout, and also Hammer. Hey, Jason Hammer comes on here every Thursday at 9:30.
Money, money, money.
He's been on fire, 8-0 the last 2 weeks? He was 3-0 last night as the Broncos all over the Saints, 33-10 in that one.
Setting you up for football this weekend. Again, high school tonight, Week 9. We'll conclude the regular season. Brownsburg HSE with Brendan King and Jim Leisure on these airwaves. College football tonight, Purdue and Oregon. That is Fox. It's a 4-touchdown underdog for the Boilermakers in that one. Indiana with big noon kickoff, the Fox pregame show in town. About a touchdown favorite tomorrow. And Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, some questions at quarterback. Notre Dame right now a 10-point favorite. That game is in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Nationally, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Bama.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, Georgia is a haymaker of a game. Tennessee, Alabama. I mean, if Tennessee won that game over Alabama, I mean, they'll storm the field. Our guy Hammer's going to be there. They'll
Orange
storm
out.
the field. It'll be an orange out. And then number 2, I think Kalen DeBoer is going to start getting some legitimate heat. They'll be 2-2 in the SEC if they lose that game in Tennessee.
I need that.
2-2.
I need that for the Paul Feinbaum callers.
Now, I didn't know Haynes King was injured for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he got banged up late
Did he?
in their win over North Carolina.
Okay.
Georgia Tech's had a nice season. They're like 5-2.
Yeah, they're 5,
so
and he's a good player.
I think if he plays, I am very, very worried about that one. So you're getting points with Georgia?
Yes, you are. You're getting.
Gosh, how many times have we said that in the last 3 years?
You're getting 5 points. I think Georgia goes on the road and wins. I do. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia's going to win.
I'm going to take my Purdue
Texas.
winnings and I think just
And
side
roll
of
it
Georgia
over?
on that,
Okay,
right?
I like that. Well,
How
let's
about Ball State at Vanderbilt tomorrow? Transitive property this out.
Let's go Ball State.
Ball State upsets Vanderbilt. That means Ball State's greater than Bama.
Vanderbilt, one of the hottest teams in the country. Ready to make that college football
Don't
playoff.
overlook Mike New and the Chirpers. 26.5-point underdog. Ball
Oh,
State.
is that it? I'll take Ball State, maybe plus the number. Vanderbilt and Indiana, first round of the college football playoff. Who doesn't want that? Come on, Pat 40. You don't want to follow that? You don't want to fly to that destination?
That'd be a hell of a party.
Yeah, it probably would. As you mentioned, N. Rakestraw, tonight on the Fan, Brownsburg and HSC. That one at 7 o'clock. Colts Roundtable after JMV coming up at 6 o'clock. On the other end, who wins Sunday, Colts or Dolphins, and why? Our predictions coming up next. It's a Football Friday right here on the Fan.
Corbin, I think that'll be a little Ross 8 action tonight, a little Memorial Stadium action tomorrow. I love this for Purdue tonight. This is what just cemented my bet on the Boilers. One of my favorite Purdue Boilermakers of all time, Nico Kudavides. He will be the honorary captain for tonight's game against number 2 Oregon.
Okay. Well, they can pull out all the stops. I have no problem with that.
I just need to cover.
The scary thing if you're Purdue is, the first half looks a lot like the Notre Dame first half. That's the flip side. If you don't come to play and Oregon's fine with, getting on an airplane and traveling for 3-4 hours, then, it looks like the Notre Dame game. That ain't going to be good.
God, that was such a sad,
It
sad.
really
I
was.
felt bad for Purdue. Legitimately, as that game
Did you really?
moved along.
Okay.
Trust me.
All right.
I did. And thought to myself, how the hell did we lose to Northern Illinois?
Good point.
Matt Painter chiming in. We'll give our Colts picks for the Dolphins game here in a few. Matt Painter chiming in on Tony Bennett. Obviously,
okay. I'm sure.
Some history there
Sure.
at a game you were at down in Louisville.
Oh,
back
yeah. I was there.
6 years ago. Matt Painter said this. Congrats to Tony Bennett on an incredible career and best of luck in retirement. His program was defined by class and respect, and he is a great teacher and leader. He will be missed on the sidelines. Just overall, Andy, your level of surprise in that Tony Bennett news of his retirement, not health-related by all accounts, yesterday.
Well, can I go back to, it's interesting, Matt Painter and Tony Bennett are tied at the hip for losing as a 1 seed to a 16.
Sure.
And both of them, and I mean this, and many fans don't care about this, really had a lot of grace, did they not? Knowing that they were going to have to answer questions for the entire next year. And then, what happens? Tony Bennett and Virginia bounce back. They win the national title. They have to go through, obviously, you mentioned Purdue. I thought Purdue got robbed at a couple points in that game. That's a different topic. And then you look at Matt Painter, who had to go through all of that and has done nothing but win and, obviously got to the national title game this past season. So it's just kind of interesting. And those two are two guys that, yes, they got high-level guys and some guys that would go to the NBA, but they also, Virginia and Purdue, have been able to convince guys to be there and to stay and to develop and maybe even redshirt. And so, with those two, there are a lot of similarities. There was... Bennett just signed a contract extension not too long ago, so I know some people are trying to say that, if there was a coach in today's college basketball that would walk away and kind of do what we saw Jay Wright do, that it would be Tony Bennett. So I'm not totally sure I buy that. He had been doing media. He was at the ACC Media Days, just last week or the week before. So I guess at 11 o'clock today, he's going to have a press conference, KB. I'm interested in what Bennett says. And for me, here's how I view Bennett. Bennett dominated the ACC for many years from around, 2012-ish to even almost recent day. I mean, he was beating Coach K. He was beating Rick Pitino.
Yeah, four-time ACC Coach of the Year.
He was able to beat Roy Williams. I mean,
he dominated Notre Dame.
I mean, he was making life for a lot of these schools to be an absolute living hell. I remember, when Chris Mack took over when I was following Louisville, some of the games in which he beat Chris Mack just broke the back, if you will, of that program. So that's how I remember. He would beat you and play an ugly style, and then he would give the all-shucks smile, Tony Bennett. So there's a part of me that wonders if he's everyone thinks he's the nicest guy in the world. He also, is he a serial killer? That's the kind of guy that I always viewed Tony Bennett as, but he is beloved in the game, and there's just a part of me that believes he's not finished at 55 years old. There's just a part of me, and I don't know if it's the way college basketball is that was frustrating him. I thought the last couple years, we mentioned a lot of Kyle Guy. I thought their talent dipped the last couple years, so there might be something to it with NIL and the transfer portal. And I'm interested in what he says today. I'm interested if he whines about that like some other guys, some other older coaches have whined about that on the way out. But, there's no doubt about it, KB. If you go back to, I'm looking at it right now, if you go back to about 2013 to even 2022, right? Not last year, but the year before last year, they won the ACC. This guy dominated the conference probably 8 out of 10 years. It really was quite a run.
Yeah, it is. I selfishly hope we get an answer on why now from him at 11 a.m. Why on October 17th? That to me is just the, Andrew Luck, I guess you could justify it a little bit of like, okay, the pain in the rehab was getting to a point even 2 weeks before the start of the season that he felt like it was overcoming his other relationships. Agree, disagree. It was at least a bit of a why that, like, all right, I can kind of see it. Tony Bennett, I've got no idea why now in terms of mid-October, 2.5 weeks before the season starting. You mentioned it. He was at ACC Media Days last week. By all accounts, this was not something, imminent by any means. His relationship with Kyle Guy, I mentioned it earlier. Kyle Guy is now on the staff there at UVA. He named his first son after Tony Bennett. That shows you the type of, human being and coach, and I would guess, whatever, father figure, male figure, role model, all of those things that Tony Bennett provided for one of his players there. So I hope we get the why now. Adam asks this: is Matt Painter one of the elder statesmen of college basketball right now? He tosses out a couple of names of Mark Few, Tom Izzo. Of course, I think you still got to throw Cal into that mix. I think Bill Self is probably in that group as well. But I would say undoubtedly Matt Painter is one of those names, voices. The next up-and-coming group probably has some version of Tommy Lloyd and some of those that could kind of rise with that here. We'll kind of see if what's my guy's name? Nate Oates, does he kind of rise with that group? But yeah, I would say Painter certainly is.
Can I get to this before we take before we get to our picks? What is interesting as well to me, and this is where basketball people disagree with this. Okay, if we had a basketball analyst on, my guy Mike DeCourcy, he would disagree. Jay Wright left, and Jay Wright picked who was going to be the next coach.
When did Jay Wright retire?
In Kyle Neptune. It was before the 2022 season. And
I guess I meant which April?
Yeah, I don't think he didn't do this. Corbin, you can look that up on the fly. He didn't do what Tony Bennett did.
Yeah, late April.
The reason I bring it up is Jay Wright set things up where Kyle Neptune would take over Villanova. Villanova has been 17-17 and 18-16 since Jay Wright left. And Ron Sanchez is going to be taking over for Tony Bennett. Now, he came back to the Virginia staff and has been under Tony Bennett for 11 years. So, A, that to me is a little bit interesting. And B, this is a guy that at Charlotte in Ron Sanchez finished 13th in Conference USA, 4th, 11th, 8th, and 5th. And went to the CBI once, never made the NCAA tournament. What is interesting to me is that these coaches have been given the right, these great coaches, to hand it off to their guy. And Kyle Neptune has not been good at Villanova. And it's going to be interesting if Ron Sanchez, who I don't know, is good at Virginia after Tony Bennett every year, just about every year, had his team in contention to win the ACC.
I think something that I like to hear from Bennett today, again, is the why now. Because if this were a player doing this on October 17th,
we'd crush him.
We would say he quit.
We'd crush him.
So
I agree.
I think Tony Bennett, I think we, the UVA fans, college basketball is certainly his team. I think they do deserve that sort of explanation. And, the counter to that could say, hey, do you want a head coach that's going to half-ass it throughout the year or whatever effort he would have given this season? But, I am hoping that, I love that he's having a retirement press conference, frankly. I'm hoping he provides that. So, again, that coming up at 11 a.m. Should we do our picks on the other side?
Yeah, let's do our picks on the other side. Listen, I think it's good to have the Tony Bennett discussion here. The state of Indiana, it's college basketball central, and Tony Bennett is one of the best college basketball coaches we've seen in the last 15 years.
Almost seemed like a lifer.
I know. Yeah, the timing, I believe, is more set up so his guy can get the first shot at the job.
Do you respect that, or is that
I don't like
shady?
It. No, I don't like it. I don't like it, and I wonder what Virginia people think about that. There's part of me that wonders, how much he talks about the changing landscape of college athletics. To me, is going to be the story today. You mentioned the timing, but to me, it's going to be is Tony Bennett going to go out
which
with
is
one
fine.
of the,
Jay Wright hung it up in April. April's a lot different than you let Kyle Neptune a whole offseason to do whatever he needed.
Yeah, to me, it rubs me the wrong way. And I believe Virginia probably has players that aren't going to give up on the program. There's not a lot of one-and-done players there. But if some guys left, good for them.
Sure.
Because that's the situation that Tony Bennett created there at Virginia. Let's do our picks on the other side, who we think win. I have no idea who KB's going to pick this week, so I'm kind of interested in that. So we'll do our picks, Colts or Dolphins, and we'll do it next here on a Football Friday.
4 of 5 on the road here. I wouldn't think a huge infiltration of Dolphins jerseys, unlike Steelers and Bears, the two previous home games.
Not going to be the case. No, I mean there'll be a few old school Merino jerseys around. Maybe a Brian Thomas jersey. Who am I missing? Who else? Zach Thomas. Excuse me. Who else might we see out there on Sunday?
I have a Ricky Williams jersey.
A couple Rickies. So no, I don't think that will be the case. Now you made this, and I didn't know if you were being snarky, but we just kept moving on. I think it was on Wednesday. You mentioned something when we had Stephen Holder on about it might be a nice day to have the roof open at Lucas Oil. You were joking,
Oh, no,
right?
I think I was serious, right?
Okay, well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. We just kind of moved
I
on.
was serious.
It's supposed to be 74 to 75 degrees and sunny. I mean, the roof is going to be closed, but you think there's a chance it's open?
Well, if you ain't opening it when it's that weather, when the hell else you opening it?
Again, I think you should root for colder weather, and we know one team cannot play in cold weather. We know the Dolphins can't play in cold weather. It would actually be better if it were 50 degrees, not for tailgating, but if it were 50 degrees and they opened the windows and they opened the ceiling, the roof, and everything else to freeze them out.
Just to remind people on the final injury report coming up later today for the Colts, Wednesday they had 9 guys miss practice. 7 of those 9 returned to action yesterday. Now, Alec Pierce was a new addition to the injury report, a shoulder injury. He did not participate yesterday. Again, the Colts did sign an extra wideout to the practice squad, so they now have 3 wideouts there. So that's probably something to keep an eye on. I think at this point it's safe to say Jonathan Taylor is about to miss his 3rd straight game. That would be 16 missed games for him in the last 3 years. And do not expect to force Buckner back this week either. The Colts have not started his 21-day window. But another full day yesterday for Anthony Richardson. So I mean, I think all in all, I know people are obviously disappointed about Taylor's situation. I think all in all, Andy, it's probably one of the healthier-looking injury reports heading into Friday in a while for the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, really all we have to worry about, last week, if you think the last couple weeks we were making these predictions not knowing what was going to happen, we sat here a week ago thinking there was no way Pittman was going to play and thinking that there was a nice chance that Josh Downs might not play, and Downs played and was great last week and scored a touchdown, and obviously I don't need to tell you how tough as hell Pittman Jr. is, and he had the 2 big plays, including the touchdown there in the fourth quarter in Nashville. I mean, it does worry me about Alec Pierce. I mean, Pierce has been a weapon. He's been good in the fourth quarter, and then not to mention, his biggest play, didn't have a catch last weekend, but, to be able to beat a corner and then the corner's got to stick out his hand or trip you or, grab you, whatever, can turn into a 45-yard pass interference call. So that's as good as of a completion. So I'm still going to be positive that Alec Pierce is going to play, but I guess let's jump into it. What do you think happens? I'm interested to see where you go this week.
Yeah, again, the level of worry is much higher for me than it was last week. I just think they have some players that can attack what have been, I would argue, pretty weakly issues for you defensively. Tackling would be atop the list. A lack of a pass rush. I mean, if you are letting Tyler Huntley, was Levis fully healthy right shoulder last week? I think that is probably a question to ask as well. If Tyler Huntley has time, can all of a sudden he get the chance for Tyreek Hill to create the separation or Jalen Waddle to create the separation there? So that's where my worry is pretty high. And I've gone back and forth on this within my head throughout the week. You pointed out a pretty damning statistic earlier in the show. How many possessions post Tua and how many touchdowns for Miami?
2 touchdowns for the Miami Dolphins post the Tua injury. After Tua, AT is like I like to call it, 39 possessions, and it's a scramble touchdown from Huntley and an Alex Ingold 3-yard touchdown. Those are the only 2 touchdowns in 3 games, 39 possessions since Tua went down.
That is sickening. That is wild. I couldn't believe that was the ratio that it's been. So ultimately, I think some deficiencies on Miami's right side of their offensive line, some key injuries in the defensive front, particularly the pass rush. The Colts, I think, will do enough. I will go with Indianapolis 30-24.
Okay.
But, again, this is probably the closest one I've had to a coin flip in quite a while. Probably, I think Pittsburgh maybe. I was a little indecisive on as well. But this one to me is truly truly up in the air.
Okay, so what's interesting is one of the things that I was going to bring up today in this segment was, what if we get to a situation where the Colts go out there and score a bunch of points? And you think that's going to happen, and to a certain extent, I do as well. The over-under is 43.5, so you obviously, with 54 points scored, are going way over the over. I'm going over as well. I'm going Colts win this game 26-20. And I think we leave there with Anthony Richardson having done enough. I think it's going to be Anthony making a few nice-sized plays. I actually think Tyler Goodson could have a nice game as well. And I think the flip side, the reason I've asked you today, are we leading with Richardson on Monday, or do you think we're leading with Gus Bradley? I think we're going to get that mixed bag with the defense. I think just like against the Titans and just like against the Steelers, I think you're going to have some defensive plays that confuse you, and obviously 2 or 3 touchdowns being scored by the Dolphins. So I think the Dolphins are going to find that the Colts defense at times is weak, but I think the Colts understand what this game means. You're getting ready to hit the road for a couple games. The next 5 weeks, the next month or so is not going to be easy, and I think they understand that. So I do think the Colts win. I think both of us feel like there are some points in this game. Ultimately, I say the Colts win. I say they hang on, and it's going to be 26-20. That's the final.
I think I said this to you in passing earlier in the week, but it is kind of odd. In the last 4 games, Matt Gay has only attempted 1 field goal of longer than 40 yards.
It's surprising.
Like, that storyline has just quieted down, and I don't really recall many times the Colts have even been in situations. Like, I don't think we've seen a lot of Shane Steichen is going for it because he doesn't trust his kicker.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's been the 4th and 6 moment from the 32-yard line where Steichen has decided to go for it. So, again, in a game that Vegas is picking the Colts by 3, that is something I think to keep an eye on. Corbin Lingenfelter, would you like to Mark Dykton it up with a pick?
Yeah.
I feel like Mark's been pretty bad lately with his picks.
You can't do worse than
well,
him.
let's see how good mine is. I'm going the opposite of Andy. I think this is a low-scoring game, not because of 2 stellar defenses. I think because of, honestly, it's going to be a tough offensive match. I'm going 14-10 Colts.
Ooh, that is low
That'd be
scoring.
an old Big Ten game.
Gosh,
14-10.
yeah.
I like that.
Sounds like Iowa Northwestern at noon.
That's an old school football
Late
game.
November.
I just a couple other
Which again, that's what Miami. I mean, to be fair to Corbin,
Oh,
that
sure.
is what the Dolphins have been. I mean, you just rattled off the stat. They are dead last in the NFL in scoring right now at 12 points per game, and that is skewed a little bit from having Tua play, for them. So, yeah, part of me is like when I say my score out loud, I'm like, man, are the Dolphins really going to get there? But Rick Venturi, I thought, said it pretty well earlier this week. I look at Gus Bradley's defensive effort from Sunday and look at it as 15 minutes of fame, and I choose to think. There's a lot of bad around that. I mean, legitimately, 15 minutes of fame. That was a hell of a fourth quarter finish. 5 drives for Tennessee. Shut them out. But we had a listener chime in earlier in the week, Andy, if any other quarterback not named Levis is under center Sunday, they probably get it done against the Colts.
They probably win. Well, if you go back, you had the 15 minutes of fame against the Titans. You had a complete and utter debacle against Jacksonville. And then the last quarter and a half of that Steelers game was a debacle as well. I mean, Justin Fields, who probably is getting benched this weekend, Justin Fields had his way. That Steeler offense had their way. So I'm with you. I don't think, even though I have it 26-20, I think your score mimics this as well, I think we walk in here with the Colts winning, but we don't feel better about their defense. I don't expect to come in here and feel better about their defense. I expect Miami to make, again, I mean, I have it 20. I could pick 26-21. I think they score 3 touchdowns. Like, I think Miami is going to, they're going to score in this game. I don't think they're going to look as bad as they had the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Snoop Huntley has had, I think, 11, 12 career starts. He's got as many games over 200 yards as he does under 100 yards.
Wow. I mean, he's won so many games with Baltimore with special teams and defense.
Right.
And they
so
could.
Again,
they were that great.
This is not like they've won because it's more of in spite. So that is probably something we should factor in as well.
Yeah, so those are our scores. Again, Corbin, you have it Colts winning, right? 14-10. I have it 26-20, KB 30-24. We'll keep the Colts conversation going. The voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, he joins us next. 9 o'clock hour around the corner, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Final hour of the week here. On this Friday morning, our coverage will begin bright and early. That is 9 a.m. Coming up here with J&V at Bullseye Event Center. And then, of course, Matt Taylor and company will join you for coverage. It is another Sunday at 1 o'clock. The Dolphins in town, and talk more about it. He is the voice of the Colts, and you will hear him on Sunday. He is the great Matt Taylor. Mr. Taylor, I absolutely love the video shot of your booth in Nashville of the Michael Pittman Jr. touchdown. You standing up. Rick Venturi, if I'm not mistaken, standing up as well. Are you a stander-upper when you call the game?
I am, yeah. I have to stand for probably 95% of the game. And I'm a big move my hands guy. You know, I can't talk unless I'm, physically acting and moving. I talk with my hands. I point. I move around. I kind of shuffle back and forth. I kind of pace, between like a 3-foot area. So, yes, I'm very active on game day. So when the game is over, I'm kind of perspiring a little bit, right?
Gosh, I love that. I like that. Well, it's a workout for you, not only the players and coaches, but it's a workout for the radio crew.
Tells Flacco to get out of the shower. It's Matt Taylor's turn to take a shower post-game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Zaire Franklin goes first, and I go second. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know how guys that do, I don't know how they sit because, again, like I like to be up and I don't know. I just think you project better, at least for me anyways. You project better when you're standing and moving around. I used to kind of sit, and then I changed it up, and I started standing. And I think I'm more, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like into the game and, more on top of it if I'm standing and kind of moving around.
I love that. I'm totally with Maytay.
Oh, it was a great camera shot.
Listen,
for those that
totally
haven't,
on that.
Corbin, will you go to the Colts Twitter account and retweet that from our show account? It was a great video of Matt Taylor and Rick Venturi, of course. Emotion on full display with that touchdown.
Now, you're not going to have to say Tua's entire name, okay, on Sunday a bunch. Is there a name that's bothered you in the past, Matt, trying to say?
With the Dolphins?
Yeah, just with anybody, because Tua, like, I can't say his last name. I don't know why.
I can't spell it.
It's just an absolute bugaboo of mine. Thank God I'm not doing sports radio, in Miami. Is there a name that has bothered you through the years?
Well, it doesn't sound at all like it's spelled. It's spelled T-A-G, and then it goes on from there. I'm not going to attempt to spell it because I don't have it in front of me. But it's tongue like like a man's tongue, Tonga Viola.
Mm-hmm. Right. So weird.
But yeah, that's something that doesn't just ironically or no pun intended, it doesn't flow off the tongue to say that 55 times a game, when he's handing off or dropping back in the pocket. So no, that's a really good question, Andy. I mean, it's literally my job to know these names, so I figure and that's what it is. I would say like starting Monday night all the way up until Saturday night before a game, it's memorizing names and numbers and where you went to school and facts and figures and things to kind of stay on top of it. But the game has become so much more international now. Every single roster. I mean, the Colts have a couple of guys.
Sure.
Daiwa Dangbo and Adetomiwa Adebawore. Every roster now has guys that are obviously, from different parts of the world. You see guys from Europe. You see guys from Africa that have, got into the pipeline, the International Pathway Program, or they've moved over here and gone to college and have gotten drafted. So, yeah, every roster has a couple of guys that you have to really kind of sit down and bear down to memorize their numbers, or their names phonetically and pronounce it, because these guys are good and they play and they have big impacts across the league.
And he is the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. He is with us here on this Friday morning. Maytay, Corbin's in for Mark Dykton. I'm going to guess Mark didn't tell him to play the great NFL Films music under your Taylor's tidbits, so you might not have the background, but if you could, please share what we've got coming up for Sunday.
Oh, Corbin, if we can, I mean, we can do midstream here. Give me something as I'm flowing.
Look at this, everything. Corbin.
Yes.
Did Mark put that in the email?
He did. Wow, I underestimated Mark Dykton.
I had a minus 10,000 that he didn't. So
no,
I just lost
I thought he was searching pictures of Will Levis's girlfriend instead. So
that's me.
I love it.
Great work by Corbin. Matt Taylor, tidbit us.
All right, here we go. We're going to talk about the running game for the Colts without Jonathan Taylor. A chance that he doesn't play coming up on Sunday. Hopefully he can practice today. It's a big day for him. But listen, in the 4 games Jonathan Taylor has played this year, the Colts running game is averaging almost 132 yards per game, over 5 yards per attempt. But in the last 2 games, those numbers have dropped to 89 and 3.7 respectively. And quarterback matters too now. Joe Flacco in his 2 starts, the Colts are averaging 3 yards per carry. With Anthony Richardson in his 4 starts, the Colts are averaging over a yard more per carry, 4.6 when Anthony Richardson is on the field. So you might not have Jonathan Taylor, but you will have Anthony Richardson. That's going to be big for the Colts running game, whether it's Trey Sermon or Tyler Goodson. But the last 2 games have been kind of tough, fellas. 27 of the 48 rushing attempts against the Jags and the Titans, that's 56% gained 3 yards or less. And 14 of those were for no gain or a loss. So to have Taylor and Richardson back would be big, but just to get Richardson back without Taylor potentially, that would be large too.
Boy, I could not agree. You know, I said that to you, Andy, earlier in the week. I think it was 4.6 Richardson starting yards per carry, 3.2 with Flacco. Mayte, think back to last year with Zach Moss. You know, just the difference in when Richardson was out there versus Gardner Minshew. I mean, I feel like so many times Sunday, for example, with Trey Sermon, Tennessee would just crash a defensive end because you don't need to respect the legs of Flacco. So I think that is an aspect that we haven't talked about enough, and I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, no disrespect to Zach Moss, but he had that 56-yarder when Anthony Richardson was healthy. That was early in the season against Tennessee. He didn't have a run like that the rest of the season. So Moss, a great player, but I think you felt the presence of Anthony Richardson with the back in the backfield in that situation. All right, here's tidbit number 2. Let's talk about the Dolphin drought, boys. The Dolphins hold the longest active playoff victory drought in the NFL.
Really?
That tag used to belong to the Cincinnati Bengals, but they've had success the last couple of years with Joe Burrow. They've gone to a couple of AFC championship games and Super Bowls. The Dolphins have not won a playoff game in 24 years. The last time they did was the 1999 season, so they got the victory in the year 2000, but 24 years since Dan Marino was able to get a playoff win for the Miami Dolphins.
I don't think I would have gotten that right, Andy Sweeney.
No. I mean, they've made the postseason, but you got to think about it. Even if they've had a bye, they've lost. Right. And, last year, they had to go on the road, right? Where was it?
It was
Kansas
Arrowhead,
City,
right?
Yeah,
they were all just wilting
It was Kansas City.
Cold.
Yeah, given that they gave it away in the final month and a half of the season, instead of hosting a game in Miami, they had to go on the road. And as soon as you saw that the weather was going to be bad, you knew they were going to lose the game. Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. No, Mike McDaniel's a really good coach. He's taken to the playoffs in each of the last 2 years, but they're still looking for that elusive playoff victory. All right, here's another one. Let's talk about the Dolphins on offense, all right? They are ranked last.
Wait, time out. Sorry about this. Their last win was that overtime game over the Colts in the playoffs, right?
Wow, I didn't realize that part of it.
Yeah, I do remember that. Who was the running back in that game? Sorry, I've derailed you a bit here.
But that's adding to a tidbit. That's a KB tidbit. That's a tidbit to the tidbit.
I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like I remember a game down there where they had some random running back that ran over the Colts in the playoffs. Go ahead, Matt Taylor. I apologize.
That's all right. No, that's a Bowen bullet point on top of a Taylor tidbit right there.
Lamar Smith, 40 carries for 209 yards.
Oh, man.
All right, can either of you guess the Miami quarterback in that game?
Okay, well, I looked it up, so I know it. I don't think I would have got this
Taylor,
before.
Feet to the fire here.
And he played like crap in the game. He had 3 interceptions.
Well, I'm wrong because I would have guessed it was Marino, so I'm wrong about that.
Jay bleeping Fiedler.
Jay Fiedler.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Unreal. Wow. Edgerrin had 107. Jerome Pathon was the Colts' leading receiver. Wow. Wow. Chad Cota had 2 picks. How about that?
That was back in the AFC East days for the Colts.
Right. Great call on that end.
All right, let's talk about the Dolphins currently here on offense. They are ranked last in the NFL in scoring so far. They're scoring only 12 points per game on the season, and that number is down to 10 points per game without Tua at quarterback in the last 3 games. So last year, they were first in the NFL scoring points, almost 30 points per game. So they've gone from first to worst.
Wow.
The Dolphins scoring drop-off of 17.2 points per game from 2023 is the second largest in NFL history from one season to the next.
Wow.
Behind only the 1924 and the 1925 Cleveland Bulldogs.
Oh,
Remember
of
that
course.
bunch?
Yeah, I think that was a Scotty Pop quiz question you just stole for later today.
I mean, just the Cleveland Bulldogs that year. What a bunch of bums. What them out of town. They were terrible. But that's just it. Miami has scored just 2 touchdowns in their last 3 games, trying to figure it out with Tyler Huntley. But they're rested off the bye. I'm sure they've spent a lot of time schematically working on things, and they still have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I can go into a quick tidbit on those 2 guys. I mean, Tyreek Hill last year, he led the NFL in receiving yards with nearly 1,800. Let me repeat that. Led the NFL with nearly 1,800 freaking receiving yards for one season. But this year so far, he ranks 38th. All right, so they're trying to get some things done and some things accomplished schematically in the bye week. That makes them a very dangerous team.
Interesting. Yeah, Andy Sweeney, you said 2 touchdowns in their last 39 possessions, right?
2 touchdowns in their last 39 possessions, Matt. Yeah, it was an Alex Ingold 3-yard rush and a Scoop Huntley scamper for a touchdown. Those are the only 2 they've scored in the last 3 games. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That
Yep, but they still got Waddle. They still have Hill.
Sure.
Mostert's back. I think Achane has a chance to come off the concussion protocol this week. So they actually have a really good roster, from a individual perspective. A lot of big-name guys on defense, Calais Campbell and Agba and Jordan Poyer and Jalen Ramsey, and then obviously huge name recognition on offense. But they just haven't been the same team without Tua. So I think the Colts, this is a big one for them to take advantage. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. The Colts have to get this done.
I would agree with that. Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, with us here. Payless Liquors Hotline. Reminder, all the coverage on Sunday begins at 9 a.m. Anthony Richardson, expectations, what are you thinking? A couple games off, now 100%. I'm taking this, Matt, as I'm excited to see what AR can do here. I am.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I think this is the right move to go back to him. Guy's got to play. Guy has to continue to develop, and I think with the Colts holding him out in each of the last 2 games, they're holding him out to be 100% ready to go. And with that, this is probably a better answer for Shane Steichen, but this is just my opinion. But, if he's out there, he's got to be the dynamic playmaker that you drafted him 4th overall to be. So I don't think you can really kind of restrict anything. Maybe you're a little bit, cautious with him early in the game, but certainly as the game flows on, and you get into the second half, and if it's a close game, which all of these games for the Colts through the first 6 have been, I think the playbook has to be wide open. You still have to use him in the design running game. 3rd downs have to be big for him to get first downs with his legs inside the red zone. I don't think you can be timid at all with his injury history. If he's 100% in this game, ready to go, you have to use him like you plan to use him, and to use him to his full capacity with all that he can do with his right arm for a cannon and with his great feet and legs with that speed. You have to tap into that. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense in my opinion. So I think the Colts know that. I think they'll be a little bit cautious early on, but Anthony Richardson has to be Anthony Richardson throughout the course of the game.
Matt Taylor, could we take your brain elsewhere to wrap things up here on this Friday morning?
Oh, let's take the brain for a trip. Let's go.
I got 2 things. You are a diehard IU football fan. We know that. The great Greg Rakestraw, I guess the man can predict the future. We were discussing earlier, Matt, potential game day guest pickers. Like Scotty Scheffler's doing it for Texas, coming up with Texas, Georgia, Saturday morning. If somehow Indiana were to host game day, who would be the guest picker? Now, we threw out 3 names. We threw out Joe Buck, we threw out Kyle Schwarber, and we threw out Mark Cuban. Rake threw in Mr. Cougar, and sure enough here, just announced that Fox Big Noon Kickoff is going to have Mr. Mellencamp on stage.
Oh, no way. Are you serious? That's awesome.
So look at
really
that
cool.
coming up on Saturday morning. You like those 4 names we threw out? Would you throw in another name if game day became an ESPN broadcast in Bloomington? Where are you going?
Other names to throw out. I mean, obviously Mike Woodson's there. Maybe you can have Pat Knight represent the great Bob Knight. He's local, right? He's now the head coach at, is it Marion that he's?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So that's maybe an option. Calvert Cheney. I think Damon Bailey is still local. Anything to do with the basketball program. That would obviously be well represented. So no, those are good ones. I mean, to me, when I first heard that or kind of kicked that around, Mark Cuban would be the obvious one in terms of just most cachet and the biggest name. But I'm pretty sure that does the Thursday night a couple years ago when game day was at IU before the season opener, does that technically count?
Well, it did. It did. This was when I was doing radio in Louisville. My producer was an IU fan, and we kicked this around. Was that real college game day, or was it kind of fake college game day?
It seemed like JV college game day.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, that was like college game day light. When you on a Friday night you go buy a case of Dirty 30s for $7.
Dirty 30s. Amen to that. I went to that convenient mart right there at 17th and Dunn a whole lot to try and buy those.
I hit that rolling into town a time or two.
Yeah, oh yeah, right there before you get to your buddy's place. Okay, last one. Into the Ring of Honor coming up on Sunday. You got a favorite Dallas Clark memory?
I do. For me, the biggest individual moment for Dallas, and I'm probably not alone in this, is I think it was like 2009, that epic Monday night game against the Dolphins. Ironically, laser over the middle by Manning, and Dallas tips it to himself like 3 times in stride and then runs like 60-plus yards. I remember him doing that because he never wore gloves. I mean, just what a complete badass to be able to pull in that number of catches and that number of yards and never wore gloves. Just complete old school. Dallas, I mean, he'll admit to this, and I would say it to his face because he's so self-deprecating. Just a big goofball from Iowa, and so self-deprecating and just grassroots guy and down to earth. And I just remember the kindness that he showed to me and the respect he gave me with interviews with me as a youngster kind of coming up and covering the Colts. He was so cool to work with. And I love that story that he tells, being drafted in 2003, gets in the huddle, those first couple of practices with the likes of Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning and Tarek Glenn and all of those guys, Edgerrin James. And, all of those guys, by the way, are in the Ring of Honor. And he's looking around saying, like, why am I here? Like, how did I get here? Why am I here with all these legends, already established at the time? But he was the missing piece. And Bill Polian had the foresight to, pull that trigger and make that move. And rightfully so, Dallas Clark, one of the greatest hybrid tight ends in the history of the league, history of the Colts. And he is so appreciative of this moment. You're going to see him just smile from ear to ear coming up this weekend.
Again, the coverage will begin 9 a.m. coming up on Sunday. It's a lone home game in the month of October, a stretch of 5 weeks, 4 of them on the road. So Matt Taylor will enjoy a Saturday night in his own bed. Mate, as always, sir, thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great one.
That's a great Matt Taylor right there on the Payless Liquors hotline.
I wrote down 3 things. Okay.
Yeah, fire.
Dallas Clark, obviously converted linebacker, Iowa guy. He is considered country strong, is he not?
Yes, I would say
Dallas
that is
Clark,
true.
okay,
Yes,
that's number 1. Number 2, I think the Hoosier Hysterics guys need to be at College Game Day. I mean, come on, Scott Dolson, in your face, Mike Woodson. That's number 2.
Mike Woodson might tackle him off stage if he sees him up there.
And then number 3 about the game. One thing we've talked about, but not too much. You feel like with the injuries to JT, and even though Trey Sermon at times gives you very little, he may not be out there. They're going to need Anthony Richardson rushing yards on Sunday.
Sermon did return to practice yesterday. I know that was a question that we had.
But at times he can be 12 carries for 20 yards.
I will stand by it. I think Tyler Goodson needs to receive the workload that Sermon has been getting.
They'll need Anthony Richardson rush yards. Not 100 yards, okay? Not a Lamar Jackson performance, but, they might need 45 yards.
Certainly.
From Anthony Richardson. He's going to have to run the ball, I don't know, you tell me, 7 times, 8 times on Sunday. I think that's probably the over-under right around where I would put it.
Yeah, I think that is something to watch. Again, Miami really banged up on the edges of their defense, so, can you attack there? Matt Taylor threw out some names, College Game Day-wise. Nick has chimed in here with Antoine Randall. I think anytime you get into the NFL-related guest, it's kind of hard to work around their schedule.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I can't see Campbell saying, "Hey, Mr. Randall L., go down to Bloomington as we board the plane for our road game."
You never know.
Go ahead and take part in that. And I guess Joe Buck would maybe even fall into that category. I would assume Saturday's a big travel day to the site of wherever Monday Night Football is. So, I don't know. Maybe they would make exceptions on that end, but I tend to think, I get the Joe Buck with the ESPN connection. I don't know. I feel like Cuban and Schwarber are a little bit more of a...
Boy, I can't remember her name. She's on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. She's D on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. She was a guest picker for Oregon last week, and I thought that was a complete whiff. I don't mind saying it. I mean, the majority of people.
Well, some of them
wasn't
are
funny.
Complete whiffs.
Yeah, and also College Game Day's got to, and I'm not one, listen, sometimes we go over on our radio clock here, but I mean, College Game Day went to like 12:07 last week. Like, guys, we got to wrap it up, right?
Is that allowed?
I got Big Ten games I got to bet on at noon. What are we doing? Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, we got Miami-Louisville coming up at noon on Saturday.
Which, by the way, I think Louisville wins that game. You want a Jeff Brom thing real quick? And I don't think Louisville's that great. I think they're about an 8-4 team. Jeff Brom and Purdue fans will remember this. Back in 2018, what did he do, KB? He beat number 2 Ohio State 49-20. In 2021, he beat number 2 Iowa at Iowa 24-7. In 2021, he also beat Michigan State 40-29. And last year, he beat top 10 Notre Dame 33-20.
Why the hell did you have to bring that up?
Well, just because of all the Yankee stuff. If you want to find one of those runs by a Louisville player, you can. I'm kidding, Corbin. So is this the game that if you go by past precedent that Jeff Brom gets a big win, Miami's flirted with the loss, and Miami loses? I'm going to be sad. My man Stephen Holder is going to be in attendance.
Just for that, Corbin, I'm going to take the wheel here. I'm going to lead off the morning check down. I need John Kinsey Noel's highlight, and I need it right now, Corbin.
Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Corbin Lingenfelter, hit the music, brother.
Oh my goodness! Big Christmas has tied it! The ultimate present under the tree! Oh my goodness! John Kinsey Noel! The biggest swing of his life!
I don't know what was harder, the ball that he hit or the bat flip velocity. Did we get a little exit velocity on that as he whipped it back?
Yeah, I didn't see the ELO.
Behind home plate there. David Fry did it in the 10th. Yankees fans named Andy Sweeney weeping after Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton very well looked like they were going to do it to the Guardians. So that series has some life. 2-1 now, Game 4 coming up today. I would say the NLCS is lacking life. The Dodgers bats, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts alive and well. That series could be wrapped up today. Dodgers all over the Mets in Game 4. So we'll get a Game 5, potential clincher, and then Game 4, and all of a sudden, if that series gets 2-2, well, Bronx Bombers could be feeling it for Game 5.
Yeah, and they do 2, 3, and 2.
Correct.
This, by the way. So people need to, if you're not paying attention, obviously, 2, 3, and 2 there.
Great playoff base. That was a great game.
It really was.
2 outs with both those homers in the 9th and 10th.
It's just, I thought the Mets would, on the flip side, I thought they would give a little bit more of a fight.
Well, they got the split. I mean,
I know. It has looked like
the road split.
It's looked like varsity and JV in a lot of ways. And again, the Dodgers are a loaded team and a loaded roster. And second pitch of the game, Ohtani puts one out. That's never good. All right, so let's go to the Colts. Like you mentioned, coverage beginning Sunday at 9 a.m. Colts and Dolphins. We've all given our predictions. We all think the Colts do win coming up on Sunday. Let's give you some Shane Steichen from, let's do it 2 days ago. On Scoop Huntley, the quarterback now there in Miami. Here's what Steichen had to say.
Just honing in on the details of that offense. He's a guy that can make plays now. He runs around. He can make plays with his feet. He can make plays scrambling too. So to get that bye week under his belt, I think, will be beneficial for him.
It almost sounds like Mike McDaniel describing the Colts defense as thoroughly vibrant earlier in the week.
I love when coaches have to say something nice about the opponent.
I think
mean,
he
they don't
doubled
have to,
down on
but-
he can scramble and he can make plays with his feet. Okay, I was,
we
I was
get it.
100% sure.
We get it.
On that first point there. So again, Miami's offense, they've been pretty lifeless here with Tyler Huntley. We'll see. I mean, I do think there is some validity to what Shane is saying about the bye week. Like, I think Mike McDaniel falls a little bit more in the Matt LaFleur style of, there is a blueprint out there with a quarterback that's been there less than a month to execute against Indianapolis. Can Miami do that? Remains to be seen. So again, our picks earlier coming up here on the other side. We'll give our picks on the easiest game to select, hardest game to select, and our popcorn game, our must-watch game here, Week 7 of the NFL. Must-watch last night, I guess Pacer-wise. Hopefully you watched the end and not the start. It was another, I think it's safe to say, it's preseason basketball, but it was ugly from the starting unit, particularly that second quarter there last night on both ends of the floor. Rick Carlisle, none too pleased on that, understandably. Outside of Ben Shepard and Enrique Freeman late, there wasn't much to celebrate. Pascal Siakam was awful, and really the starters, again, both ends of the floor, not good here in the preseason. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. That's my analysis is like yours, and it's not great. I don't know.
It hasn't been good. I don't know what it matters. And again, the start of the schedule, if you look at it, 10 of their first 16 are on the road, and the 6 home games are all against playoff teams from last season in the East.
There's no hiding.
And, part of me wants to say this. I mean, this is a team with continuity, and they're bringing everybody back, and they look healthy at the start of the year. They should be better equipped early in the season than other teams.
Yeah, Carlisle mentioned they're not, tied together, or they're not playing as a unit, that starting unit. Why would that be the case? Like, I just don't understand. I mean, there would be no reason why that would be the case.
Why? I said to you earlier, are they struggling with the emphasis on physicality? Is that bothering them a little bit more than it's bothering other teams? Should I shut up and say it's 4 quarters of preseason basketball? That thought is also on my mind. So luckily, come Wednesday, we'll have other stuff to discuss. But, yeah, if you are going to say grade the starting unit in the preseason, I'm not giving them much more than a D.
They're also playing zone. They're playing that zone.
They didn't throw that out in the first half again last night.
You're just wondering. There are new things, new physicality. You're still playing. I know it's the second unit, but you're still playing Jarris Walker a little bit more, James Wiseman a little bit more. You're trying to be better at defense while throwing in a zone defense. I don't know. I'm making excuses. To me, it's much like the Colts. When you bring everyone back, and that's what basically your shtick is going to be. You need to be better early on. Anything else we need to hit? I mean, big weekend college football. We're running behind here. Anything else you want to get to morning checkdown-wise?
That covers it all. Again, tonight we got Brownsburg HSCNR Airwaves with Brendan King and Jim Leisure.
Yeah, reminder, it's also a big Saturday here on the Fan. You have IU Nebraska at 11. We'll have Alabama Tennessee around 3:30, 4 o'clock when all the IU stuff is done. And then ALCS Game 5, we'll have it, Yankees and Guardians at 7 o'clock. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, the easiest game to pick, the toughest game to pick, and the popcorn game that we can't wait to watch this weekend. We'll talk some NFL. We'll do it next here. It's a Football Friday on the Fan.
All right, coming up in about 10, 15 minutes, our Freebie Friday pop quiz. So that means the 4-pack of tickets to tomorrow night's home finale for the Indy 11s and playoff implications on the line there, and the Jiffy Lube oil change on that Freebie Friday pop quiz. We will hand out our easiest, hardest, and our popcorn games of the week for the NFL here in just a second. Boy, during the break, I heard some scorching Tony Bennett hot takes here.
Okay, well,
in studio.
It needs to be said, and Corbin, you're going to have to turn your mic on. You haven't even heard the other one, and I'm going to out Corbin a little bit here. Corbin has had off-air 2 hot takes over the last couple days.
Yeah, flamethrowers.
Okay, so give the Tony Bennett take that you have, Corbin, and then I'll give the one you gave me.
He went Kelvin
yesterday.
Sampson on us here.
He did.
All right, so I think Tony Bennett might be getting hit with one of those show cause orders from the NCAA here in the next year.
I would love that.
How many college
A
coaches
man that
have
good
we
looking
seen?
getting the show cause?
Oh, man. It's the hottest take. I hope Mike DeCourcy's not listening. College basketball analysts and writers would faint hearing what Corbin is giving right now. This is the hottest take that's been given in a year in Indy Sports Talk Radio.
Corbin. Unreal. Now, I thought we were just a day. I mean, we got to be just hours away from our Peegs message board saying, should you add Tony Bennett to the list post
Sure.
Mike Woodson?
Oh, goodness. We never played the sound, by the way.
That take is like a 55-degree day compared to Corbin throwing that out there. Corbin's boiling over there.
Who gets a job first in college basketball, Brad Stevens or Tony Bennett?
I like that.
Because your boy, Micah Shrewsbury.
He dropped it at ACC Media
We
Day.
never played the sound last week, but he's like, oh, yeah, I think Brad Stevens comes back and coaches college.
Brad Stevens to IU.
And everyone's like, huh? And we love that he said that. And then the other one, Corbin said this yesterday. Corbin, I'll let you elaborate, but you're not sold that the Indiana Pacers make the playoffs this season.
Wow, did he say that?
No, he said this off air.
Where was I? Was I peeing?
You had already left. You were peeing. You were doing whatever. And me and Corbin had a small little conversation before I left. I did the tease for today's show, and he
making the playoffs. Corbin, feel free to expand.
Yeah, I've got Indiana winning 40 games this year. I mean, and Eddie Garrison's going to slap me in the back of the head when he sees me later on.
If you're filling in for Mark next Tuesday, Rick Carlisle might slap you. But go ahead.
I mean, just what they've shown early on and what they did in the offseason, like, what was the one thing that Rick said that they wanted to do? They wanted to get bigger and they wanted to get better on defense. I haven't seen it yet.
No, to be fair, that is an accurate statement.
Yeah, it's fair.
But I just think they're built for 82 games. I just think they have depth. I don't think
40 wins. I mean,
Corbin, I'm going to have to simmer on those
So
two
that
for
means
a second.
yesterday we had Scott Agnes on, and Agnes was like, they should win 50. And then Agnes is like, actually, they should win 52. Corbin had to be sitting there thinking, this guy thinks they're winning 52. I think they're winning 40.
You need to call up Agnes. You two can find some nice odds there with both of the sides that you are on. Corbin, in all seriousness, thank you for filling in for Mark Dykton all week long. I think you'll be back with us Thursday and Friday of next week. All right, Andy Sweeney, week 7 of the NFL. Where are you at for your easiest game to pick here?
Listen, I've seen this game. I'm not going to give you analysis. I'm just going to move on. The Eagles are going to beat the Giants in New York. I've seen this game a million times. I did see this morning Dan Orlovsky came out and said he thinks the Eagles are the least prepared team in the NFL. Well, you've heard of a slump buster before. We've talked about that with the Colts or whatever it may be. That's what I think happens here. So I think Philly wins.
Malik Neighbors is back, right?
I think the offense is all about my man Tyrone Tracy Jr. from Purdue. I mean, that's the guy. That's the focal point of the offense. I think the Eagles bounce back to me. There are other games we can talk about. I know the Commanders over the Panthers. I understand that could be an easy one. But for me, Eagles have had mind control the last couple years on the Giants. I'll say the Eagles take care of business and do it yet again. I'm going to say 24-13 will be your final to that game.
Coach Harbaugh is healthy. I like them covering 2.5 at the Cardinals.
Okay.
I'm just not a big Arizona Cardinals guy. I know they've had a moment or two this season. I thought Green Bay kind of got them back to reality last week. I'll say the Chargers 2.5 there. My hardest game to pick, I mean, it's kind of a game I feel like we haven't talked about enough this week.
Okay.
49ers and Chiefs.
That's a good game. Yeah.
So the 49ers are favored at home by 1.5.
That's the Tom Brady game, right? 425 on Fox?
Is it Brady?
I bet it is, yeah. It's a Brady game.
I mean, Kansas City's played with fire. I mean, they have had several of these games go down to the final possessions, final few minutes, and I just think at some point, and I don't know, maybe out of the bye it's dumb, but the hardest game to pick, I just want to stay away from it. And trust me, there are a lot of people out there who say, Mahomes and points?
Sure.
Hell yeah. I'm
Sure.
all over Kansas City in that one, but I don't know about you. I just think that's a difficult game for me to
Yeah,
pick.
and then on the other side, just to add to that, the Niners have given up 2 10-point leads in the fourth quarter, which is a Kyle Shanahan thing. So it's like, even if they get ahead, think of it 20-10, can they keep that, right? Can they hold that? So I'm not sure that's the case. I think fantasy-wise as well, you've seen Travis Kelce be involved, but that's a big game for the Niners. Obviously, at 3-3, a much bigger game for them. Mine's going to be, and if Mark Dykton were here, he would not be happy because of his hate for Aaron Rodgers. He hates the Jets being in primetime. But, Jets and Steelers, the Jets are a debacle. They're favored on the road against the Steelers.
Are they really?
And by 2, and no one knows what the Steelers are going to do at quarterback. Do they go to Russell Wilson? Is the upside actually there that some people think is there with Russell Wilson? And then the Jets, all the woe is me stuff, Devontae Adams is playing. So what does that do? So, what are the Jets anyway? What are they now that they have added, this great player in Devontae Adams? What can he give them being in the facility just a couple days? And then, the Steelers, what they're doing or not doing at quarterback, can they win an ugly game? The over-under on this one actually is only 38 and a half. So I would stay away from this one. I just don't know. Some people would say you take a home dog, right? You take the Steelers getting points at home, but I could see the Jets win this game. I'm staying away from that one. It's Sunday Night Football at 8:20 on Sunday.
I think it's a very good Week 7 slate. Let me start there in terms of popcorn matchups. Again, we get the 2 Monday Nighters coming back here this week, just 2 teams on a bye. So we've got 2 Monday Nighters. So I debated several games. I debated Chiefs 49ers as a popcorn game. I think Ravens-Bucks on Monday Night Football has some strong appeal to it.
The Bucks offense has been solid.
And explosive and fun to watch. Lions and Vikings, one I thought about a whole lot. Certainly the NFC North audience will love that. But I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud and Lambeau.
Okay.
Texans-Packers. That's where I'm going to go. I think I always probably side a little bit with the Texans just because, I care about them in the AFC South. I try to watch them as much as I can. The Colts will face Houston coming up here a week from Sunday. So, again, Andy, I really thought about 4 different games, but I will go with Houston and Green Bay as my popcorn game here in Week 7.
Yeah, we never talk about which games we're taking, so I'm always ready to pivot if I have to, and I know you're the same. I was down between Packers and Texans or Lions and Vikings, and I ultimately settled with Lions and Vikings. I'm interested, the Vikings favored by 1.5 here, so Vegas is telling you that the Lions might be the better team. The Lions just got done thrashing the Dallas Cowboys last week. Minnesota has been good. I would say they've had 3 A-level performances, 1 shaky performance, and then in London, Sam Darnold didn't have a very good game, but they beat the Jets. What are they kind of giving that extra time? A 4-1, a 5-0, best division of football. Vikings, 3-0 at home. Lions 2-0 on the road. To me, this is the game of the weekend. I think Lions-Vikings is the game of the weekend, and I think the Lions go in. I think the Lions win the game.
You just got to get through Patriots and Jags at 9:30. If you can get through that, then it's a good Sunday slate.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even, unless you're starting Tank Bigsby, there's not even a fantasy football connection that would get that. I mean, you just got to love the NFL, and you got to gamble on the NFL to watch that game at 9:30. With that being said, I'll be glued to my TV probably at 9:30. I mean, what else?
Is Evan Ingram healthy?
Evan Ingram, I forgot about that. No, Evan Ingram, he's the best fantasy guy probably in that game.
You might be playing a defense in that game.
You might be. You might be. I don't know. I'm trying to look at the other games. Is there another game that we're just forgetting that we should be talking about? I don't think the Commanders can lose to the Panthers, right? I mean, Rams and Raiders doesn't matter whatsoever. Browns, Bengals only matters if you're still buying Joe Burrow and Bengals stock. I think you are a little bit more than I am. Bills should easily take care of the Titans, right? I mean, I don't know. Some of these games, I guess Seattle and Atlanta's a big game. I don't know. I mean, NFC South turning you on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know. So,
No, but I think it's a pretty good slate.
it's a solid slate.
I think you can find some pretty good games here in Week 7.
Yeah, Ravens Bucks is a good one, like you mentioned, on Monday night. All right, so it's a freebie Friday. We have the oil change. We got the 4 tickets to Indy 11 this weekend. So load up the phone lines, 317-239-1070. Pop quiz as we wrap things up on a Football Friday on the Fan.
Someone that played, or excuse me, a relief pitcher who appeared in one of last night's AL or NLCS games.
Oh, it's great.
Hornets basketball players and relief pitchers.
I meant to look up how many players for the Hornets is he? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They had 14 guys play last night, did the Hornets. By the way, we haven't even talked about it. They had 32 turnovers last night.
The Hornets did?
Yeah, they had 32.
How many points did Brandon Miller have?
That's an unbelievable number. He had 20 points, including the
dunk. How many minutes?
19. He's good, man. He's good.
He had the
he's good.
Half dunk, half kind of throw it in the basket against Turner.
Yeah, is that a dunk? Because remember, Blake Griffin did that a couple different times, and people lost their minds.
I don't know what it was, but it was damn impressive.
Well, Quinn even kind of did a huh.
Yeah. You don't see that against Turner very often. Okay, I love the format, Scotty. Great work on this. Andy Sweeney, give us number 1 through 8.
Let's go caller number 3 today. How does that sound? Caller number 3.
Austin.
Austin, what's up, man?
Good morning. How's it going, gentlemen?
Austin, good morning to you. Any weekend plans outside of, I guess, an Indy 11 trip on Saturday?
Listen. Gonna get my little Warren Central football on tonight and a little Colts football on Sunday.
Here we go. Dub C, East Side tonight against my Irish, correct?
Yes, sir.
What do we know about the Warren kid that just committed to Notre Dame? He was supposed to go to Iowa, interior O-line recruit. I think it's Cameron Herron, I believe.
Yeah, so on that, I made it out to a few games this year, and I'll tell you what, this squad, including him, best squad I have seen since, I graduated 13. A lot of big names coming out of that squad. Got big hopes for that, especially going to Notre Dame. I'm here for that. And, I might got some bets in my pocket in the future. We'll see.
Whoa.
I like that.
Hey, now. I
See,
like it.
I love the guy betting high school football. This is my guy. Austin's my guy.
On the table.
Now, they have got Damian Shankland going to LSU. I think one of their defensive linemen going to Louisville there. And then offensive line-wise, I mean, you've got one going to Notre Dame. I mean, they are loaded in the trenches.
And I'm not saying this to pander, but, I mean, offensive line-wise, college, I mean, Notre Dame and Iowa are the best, are they not?
Say,
I mean,
as soon as I saw, Kirk Ferentz thought highly of him, I'm like,
good.
This is going to be good on my end. All right, great news here, Austin. This is the shortest pop quiz you'll ever hear. Just a reminder, the names we will give you, they either are a Hornets basketball player or they pitched as a reliever in the NL or ALCS last night. Andy Sweeney, go ahead.
All right, let's go. Number 1, here's your name. Nick Smith Jr.
Nick Smith Jr. I'm gonna go with Charlotte.
Cody Martin.
Cody Martin. Oh, I know this. We're also gonna go Charlotte.
Okay, good start so far. Number 3, Danny Young.
Danny Young. We're gonna go. Danny Young. I'm gonna guess on that one, MLB, because I don't know him in the league.
Tim Meza.
Tim Meza going MLB.
Last but not least, Cade Smith.
Cade Smith. We're going MLB, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, MLB.
East Side, stand up. Warren Central, stand up.
2 winners
Let's
this week.
go. Smoke out of the tunnel.
2
Austin.
winners.
How about that? Corbin, hit the music, brother. That is a 5 for 5er to round out the week.
We're going to wait on the music. Come on. Do we have celebration music?
We got to have
Come
something
on, we gotta
more.
have this is the second time this week.
Unbelievable. That was impressive there.
I think Cade Smith would have got some people. If you remember, he struggled with Nick Smith Jr. Nick Smith Jr. was like the 5-star Mr. Everything for Arkansas a couple years ago, right? And then Cody Martin played for Musselman at Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, with Caleb, his twin, right?
Now, I'm not going here with Austin. He seemed to be a man of integrity, but Luke just chimed in here, and he goes, Luke's going, this dude's 100% looking up the answers.
Okay.
Did you get that feeling?
He paused a few times.
I mean, if you're betting on high school sports, we probably should question your integrity a little bit.
Well, I no longer, but there was a time where I was offered high school football parlays, and I partook in many parlays. I never made one, but I did partake in many high school football parlays.
To be fair to Austin and maybe the pop quiz in general, I don't know many guys in the NBA named Danny, Tim, and Cade. So Scotty maybe should have picked a little bit more NBA-centric names for our relief pitchers here.
I think also if you don't know if they're for sure in the NBA and you know a couple Hornets, you just automatically say, well, they're probably bullpen arms, because how many, average sports fans know bullpen arms for the Cleveland Guardians? I would imagine not too many. Tim Mesa's a random one, though, too. I got to be honest. I know who he is, and Jimmy Cook knows, but that might be about it.
He played 3 years at Kent State.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So we got 2 winners this week. How about that?
Scotty's going to have to go back to the drawing board here coming up for next week.
Well, I don't say he mails it in, but he does a little bit on Friday, because they're going to get the oil change anyway, right? It's not really man versus man on a Friday. It's more of a feel-good Friday, last segment of the show, that sort of thing.
All right, we'll see about Alec Pierce today. I would say that's the big individual name to watch. Colts Friday, I've already kind of written off Jonathan Taylor and DeForest Buckner for this week. Colts appear to be pretty healthy outside of that. Again, Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, they practiced yesterday. So remember, their first action last week of practice was not until Friday. So I would say a good toe and a good back week for Downs and Pittman Jr. respectively. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't think Miami has a lot of question marks on their injury report, so I don't think you'll get a lot of news items here today. And then tonight, again, 8 o'clock tonight from Ross 8, it is Purdue and Oregon, and I need them to cover 4 touchdowns.
I know you do. Going back to the Colts, I just think stopping the run and being able to run the ball is so key in this game. I don't believe Huntley's going to kill you too much, you would hope, even though Waddle
he can
and Hill
run a little, and that's a little Malik Willis week 2 vibes.
Listen, Achane is a really good player. And besides, them running the ball, they can do a little dump-off pass to Achane, and, he can do things. Mostert's back. Mostert had, 21 touchdowns last year, was, a Pro Bowler last year. He's finally back in action. So I think, stopping the Dolphins, running the football, obviously the 2 running backs and them at the quarterback position, and then how much can the Colts run the football on the flip side? The Dolphins are good against the pass, very, very league average against the run. So whether it's Pollard, I contend you're still going to need 8-9 carries, 40, 50 yards from Anthony Richardson on the ground. I think there's a good chance AR gets in the end zone with a rushing touchdown as well on Sunday. So stopping the run, being able to run the football, going to be so key on Sunday.
Tackling angles, tackling fundamentals, coverage busts, consistent pressure, all of that is really, really needed. So for those heading up to West Lafayette, for those heading to Bloomington, safe travels. Should be outstanding viewing experiences weather-wise for both of those games. High school football, final week of the year. Again, on our airwaves, we'll have Brownsburg and HSC. That'll be Brendan King and Jim Leisure on the call for both of those games. So should be a really nice weekend for anybody doing some outdoor activities, whether that's tonight or tomorrow or tailgating Sunday for the only home
It's good tailgating
game for the
weather.
Colts in October.
Oh, it's good tailgating
Great
weather.
tailgating
It's great tailgating weather. Again, KB had 30-24 Colts. I had the Colts winning 26-20. Corbin, appreciate your work. You had the Colts winning 14-10. Check out the podcast if you miss any of our shows or any shows on The Fan, 1075thefan.com. JMV at 3, Jake and Jimmy at noon. Have a good weekend on The Fan.